My family banned my adopted daughter from a wedding, so I walked away without a fight. Now they're flooding my phone with apologies. My name is Emily, and I'm the oldest of 3 sisters. Growing up, that meant I was the responsible one, the assistant, the babysitter, and the one who took care of things when our parents were too tired or distracted. I never complained. Sophia was the middle child, the performer, the attention magnet. Rachel, the youngest, was the baby. He got away with anything, and I was the one who cleaned up after everyone else. Things altered slightly as I grew older and became a mother myself, but not significantly. Lily, my 3-year-old daughter, had big serious eyes and a quiet way of observing the world, as if she didn't trust it yet. I remember crying in the car after dropping her off at preschool the first time she called me Mom, and I made a promise to her right away. Sophia got engaged last spring, with a big announcement, a big ring, and a big Instagram caption. I congratulated her, of course, and Lily even made her a card, cut out little wedding bells, and glued them on with too much glitter. She would never feel unwanted in my family again. But I couldn't keep that promise. Sophia said it was sweet, then left it in the back seat of her car, where I found it 2 weeks later, half crumpled under a Starbucks cup. Lily was still excited about the wedding. She began looking at dresses online and asking if she should wear her hair up or down. I could tell she was nervous but hopeful, and she wanted to be included. Then the invitation arrived in the mail. It was one of those fancy ones, thick paper, gold trim, the kind that probably cost more than my monthly water bill. I opened it at the kitchen counter while Lily was doing homework at the table. The usual stuff, location, dress code, RSVP link, and then I saw it. Adults only, 18 and up, strictly enforced. No exceptions. I read it twice, thinking maybe I missed something, but I didn't. Lily saw my face before I could say anything, looked up from her notepad and said, "She doesn't want me there." I responded, "It's an 18-plus wedding." She was quiet for a second, then continued, "Is it because I'm adopted?" That phrase shattered something in me. She said it so calmly, as if it was just a fact she'd come to accept. I told her, "No, of course not." But I knew what she meant. It wasn't the first time something like this had happened. Not exactly this, but other moments, smaller ones, slippery comments. My mother once introduced Lily as Claire's girl, never our granddaughter. Sophia referred to her as your daughter, as if she were referring to a neighbor's child. During family vacations, Lily would offer to help in the kitchen, and no one would even respond. I tried to believe it was unintentional, that they didn't mean anything by it, but this time was different. I didn't fight or yell, I just went online and clicked not attending. No explanation, just no. I thought that would be the end of it. The next day Sophia texted me, "Hey, just saw your RSVP. Is everything okay?" Then a follow-up. "If this is about the age thing, I hope you understand. We're being super consistent with everyone. Nothing personal, right? Except that Lily is her niece and she's 17, not 7. I didn't respond. Then Rachel messaged me and Sophia said, "Are you not coming?" "What? What's happening?" Then my mother called. She never calls me just to talk, so I picked up, bracing myself. "Emily," she said, "I heard you aren't going to the wedding. Is this actually regarding the age limit?" I answered, "Via is not invited. I am not going without her. She's almost 18. My mom said, "It's not like she's a young kid. She's family." There was a pause. "Don't torture your sister over this. It's only one night." I didn't fight. I just said, "We're not going," and hung up. That should have been it. But then came the group chat messages, the guilt, the innocuous comments. "Rachel, I can't believe you're making such a big deal over one rule. You always have to cause drama. Lily isn't the only one who isn't coming. This isn't about her. You're making it about her." My mother sent a long message about family unity and forgiveness, about how we've all made sacrifices, about how difficult it is to be in the middle, and I didn't respond. Lily deleted the dress photos from her phone, and he stopped talking about the wedding. She didn't cry, but I think that's what hurt me the most, how unsurprised she was. She'd already learned what I'd spent too long trying to ignore, so when Christmas rolled around, and no one had apologized or even brought it up, I made a quiet decision. If you had asked me 10 years ago what I thought motherhood would be like, I would have said birthday parties, messy hugs, and glitter on the carpet, not trying to protect a child from people who claim to love you both. I didn't invite them, There was no big announcement, no blow-up, just silence, and that's what enraged them the most. When Lily first came into my life, she was 3 years old and heartbreakingly serious. She had big brown eyes, soft curls, and a quiet stare that made you feel like she was memorizing everything you said just in case she needed to survive you. She didn't warm up quickly, didn't laugh at cue, and didn't run into my arms like a movie scene. But when she finally reached for my hand in the grocery store without being asked, I cried in the parking lot for 10 minutes. My husband Ethan said that was the moment she chose you. And I've been choosing her ever since. But my family never quite knew what to do with her. At first, I chalked it up to awkwardness and adjusting. Bernie didn't have my eyes. She didn't have my last name. She didn't participate in holiday conversations like the other kids, but it was more than that. My mother referred to her as the little one, instead of Lily, and Sophia once asked, "Are you going to tell her she's adopted when she's older?" While Mia was standing right there. Rachel's children received personalized Easter baskets from our parents, whereas Lily received a generic one with a happy spring tag. It wasn't overt. It was quieter. Easier to excuse if you wanted to, but Lily noticed. She always noticed. I tried to be patient. I explained. I redirected. When Lily was 6, she told my father she wanted to be an artist, and he smiled and said, "You'll need something more practical than that." When she was 8, she drew a picture of our family, me, Ethan and her, and gave it to my mother, who smiled and said, "Thank you." Then she set it down, and never mentioned it again. Lily asked later why it wasn't on the fridge like the other cousins' drawings. I didn't know what to say. The first time I really lost my patience was at Rachel's engagement party. Rachel had invited us, sort of. We were added to a mass text with a time, date, and venue. "No, can't wait to see you." There was no personal message, but we went anyway because I thought this is how we change it. We keep showing up. At the party, Rachel greeted us with a tight smile and a hello, then turned to hug the next person without asking Lily anything. She wore a pale blue dress and silver flats she had chosen herself, and she was nervous. She kept asking if she looked okay, and if she could stay close to me. We stayed for about 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes, and Lily stayed by my side the entire time. On the way home she said, "I don't think she likes me." I said, "She doesn't know you." She said, "She's had 10 years. And I didn't have an answer for that. The thing is, I don't think they ever fully accepted that Lily wasn't a temporary thing. It's as if they thought I'd eventually have a real child, and this would become a sweet chapter. Last year, for Lily's 16th birthday, we rented a space at the community center and decorated it with her artwork. She didn't want a big party with loud music. Instead, she wanted to hang her paintings, serve cupcakes, and invite the people who had supported her. They didn't have to say it aloud. She made the invitations herself and sent them out to family, friends, and a few teachers. Rachel and Sophia didn't show up, but my parents arrived 30 minutes late with a card to a sweet girl and a $20 bill tucked inside. Lily thanked them politely and then helped clean up. I put her canvases back in the car, but later that night, when we were home and the dishes were done, I found one of her sketches. It was a drawing of the three of us, her, me, and Ethan at the party, but our faces were blank. I think that's when I stopped hoping they'd change, not because of the card, the late arrival, or the lack of effort, but because it no longer hurt Lily in the same way. I knew what I had to do when the wedding invitation never arrived, not even a phone call or a conversation, just a silent exclusion. I didn't argue, plead, or ask for an exception. I simply told Lily that we weren't going, and she didn't cry. She simply nodded and said, "Okay." Later that night she inquired, "Do you think they realized we weren't present?" I answered, "Yes, because I needed her to believe she was important, even if they hadn't." We spent the wedding weekend at home. Ethan cooked French toast. Lily painted in the sunroom. I read a book cover to cover. It wasn't vengeance. It was not a demonstration. It was peaceful. And it felt strange at first. Quiet in a way that made you realize how much noise you'd been dealing with for years. I did not miss the ceremony. I didn't wonder how the flowers looked, or if the cake tasted well. I thought about Lily. I recalled how she used to seek their favor with every comment, holiday and family dinner, and how they slowly taught her not to expect it. And I considered the next holiday. For years, I'd hosted Christmas out of obligation, inviting people, feeding them, and pretending their half-hearted smiles were sufficient. This time, I won't. This time, I'd try something different. In early December, Ethan asked me, should I order the usual folding chairs? I shook my head. There are no extra seats this year. He did not push. Lily did not ask. And when the group chat started buzzing with questions like who's bringing dessert to Emily's this year, and whether we should come the night before as usual, I said nothing. I just watched the text build up, unread. I didn't say I wasn't hosting Christmas. I did not give a speech, write a bold status, or encourage everyone to go find another place to eat their ham and passive aggression. I just said nothing. And that stillness appeared to be the loudest thing I had ever done. The group conversation began to hum about December 15th. Rachel and Emily, are we still having Christmas Eve supper at your place? Let me know what I should bring. Sophia, of course. We will be 5 again. Please let me know if Lily wants anything specific this year. If she'll even be present this time. That one nearly got me. If she'll even be present this time. Like Lily was the issue. Her absence from their wedding appeared to be a personal failing on her part. Not due to being uninvited. I didn't respond. For the first time in years, I didn't thoroughly clean the entire house. I didn't reserve a roast. I did not get out the extra folding chairs. I didn't drag the large table leaf from the garage. And when no one answered, they began calling. First, it was my mother. I let it ring. Then Rachel, Sophia, and my father left voicemails. Emily, we just want to know what is going on. Your mother is upset. It is not too late to do the right thing. It's the correct thing. As if inviting individuals who excluded my daughter was the appropriate decision. As if feeding them would resolve what they refused to recognize. We did not host anyone that year. Instead, Ethan and I made lasagna in our pajamas, while Lily created sugar cookies in shapes that barely held together. We sat inside, watched movies, and opened our gifts early. We laughed longer than we had in months. It felt normal in a way that our previous holidays had not. Nobody walked on eggshells. Nobody had to translate pointed comments. When Lily entered the room, no one became silent. It was only us. And that is when the messages began to alter. December 26th. Sophia joined the group chat. I just think it is sad. We've all attempted to greet Lily, but Claire has made it impossible to contact her. Rachel, if you cut off family whenever there is a problem, you will end up with no one. Dad, how you're treating this is harsh. I apologize, but it is. My mother emailed me a photo of their Christmas tree, along with the caption. It was not the same without you. Lily would have enjoyed her gifts. I did not respond because the gifts were not for Lily. They were guilt-wrapped invitations to return and pretend everything was normal. And I'd been doing it for too long. A few days later, we received a card in the mail. I recognized the handwriting, even though there was no return address provided. Inside, my mother had written, I wish you'd think about the example you're setting. Lily will see how easily you shut people out. That statement stuck with me because I knew it was precisely what I wanted her to see. Not that love is disposable, Ray, but all love does not require you to shrink yourself. It does not expect you to sit silently while those around you pretend your sorrow is too uncomfortable to notice. Lily didn't inquire about the messages, but I knew she noticed the tension. She has never been one to inquire directly. He simply stares and absorbs, as if she is still figuring out which parts of the world are safe. One night she sat on the couch with a blanket over her legs, sketching something. She stopped, then asked, if I wasn't adopted, do you think they'd like me more? The question struck harder than any of the text. I sat down next to her. Sweetheart, I said. They'd probably pretend better, but the way they treat people who aren't like them, that was never about you. She looked at me with the same serious eyes from the day I met her and said, I don't think I want them to like me anymore. That's when I stopped waiting for an apology. A few days later, my father called back. I let it ring. Then he texted, your mother's not sleeping. She feels like she's lost you. We know we messed up, but that doesn't justify shutting everyone out. That's not who you are. I gazed at that sentence for quite some time. That is not who you are. I used to wonder about it. I used to doubt whether I was being too cool, sensitive, or harsh. But now I believe this is who I am. Someone who has finally decided what she will and will not tolerate. Someone who understands that maintaining peace at the expense of your child's dignity is not honorable. It's cowardice disguised as tradition. Sophia provided the final straw. She sent a voice memo. One of those rambling ones when folks attempt to appear calm, but each sentence contains a knife concealed inside. I just think it's sad, Claire. You've always made a great fuss about how much you adore Lily. But now it seems like you're using her as a shield. When someone doesn't treat her like royalty, you cut them off. That is not healthy. That is not parenting. That is an obsession. I didn't listen to the rest. I deleted the message and banned her number. Because, if loving Lily fiercely and completely is considered an addiction in their world, then I am addicted. I am fiercely, unabashedly concerned with safeguarding the one who needs me the most. Nothing they say will make me regret this. New Year's arrived and went peacefully. Lily fell asleep on the couch before midnight, holding a Halaton cookie. Ethan and I toasted with tea rather than champagne, and watched the fireworks on mute. He asked me, "Do you miss them?" I thought about it. "No," I replied. "I miss the idea of them. But that version never really existed." He gave a shrug. Didn't say anything else. Just reached for my hand. I'm not sure what will happen next. I'm confident they will keep trying. People like that don't leave gently. There will be additional texts and posts. Perhaps one of them will show up to Lily's graduation next year as if nothing happened. But I have made my decision. There will be no major showdown. Just a quiet distance. And sometimes, that is the most powerful option of all. It happened on Thursday. Cold, cloudy, and silent. I had just returned home from work, still wearing my coat, when the doorbell rang. I was not expecting anyone. Ethan was working late. Lily was upstairs putting together a portfolio project for her college applications. I opened the door to find my parents standing on my porch, as if nothing had happened since 2007. My mother held a Tupperware container in her hands. I believe they were oatmeal cookies, her specialty. Soft in the center, slightly charred around the edges, like the sort she used to make when I was younger. "Claire," she replied with a breathy little smile. "We thought we'd stop by." I didn't say anything at first, just stared at the container in her hands, as if it were booby-trapped. My father shifted alongside her. "Can we come in for a minute?" "No," I replied. There was a pause. Surprise? Perhaps, but not for long. My mother attempted to recover with another warm tone. "We simply wanted to talk. Things became heated. But we are still your family." She presented the cookies as a peace deal. I did not take them. That's when the smile began to fade. She added, "You don't have to be like this." Her voice tightened. "We know it's been difficult parenting a teenager while pushing everyone else away," my father added. "We tried to remain patient. We granted you room, but now you're going to lose your true family for a girl who'll go in a few months." My stomach constricted. "She's 17, my mother replied softly. "She'll be off to college shortly, and then what? You will be alone. You're going to regret this." I could hear words beneath the words. This was not about reconciliation. This was about control. And then my mother said it. Something I believe she had always known deep within. "Claire, I apologize, but she is not blood. She's not actually one of us." She stated it gently, as if she were doing me a favor. She seemed to expect me to nod and say, "You're right. I lost my way." Instead, I took a deep breath, stood back and said, "You need to leave right now." My father looked surprised. "Emily, no," I shouted more loudly. "You don't get to come here with cookies and pity and act like this is kindness. You don't get to insult my daughter to my face and then wonder why I'm not inviting you in. You're going to regret this," my mom shouted again, her voice cracking. "When she leaves you and forgets about you, you will notice that our door remains open." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned against it until I couldn't hear their footsteps anymore. I told Lily the next day that I wasn't going to let her carry their poison, but I've never lied to her. Not about anything important. She sat very still while I told her what they said about her leaving, about not being blood, about me crawling back one day. She didn't cry, but I could see it in her hands, how tightly she clenched them in her lap, how stiff her shoulders were. They really think I'll leave you, she said. No, I said. They hope you will. That way I'll need them again. She nodded slowly. They don't get to hope things about me, she added. I assumed that was the end of it. I should have known better, because a week later, my cousin Sarah shared to me an email Rachel had sent to the extended family. It was long, rambling, and passive-hostile in the way that only Rachel could be. But the message was plain. She informed them that I had left the family for a female who maneuvered her way into Claire's life and alienated her from everyone else. She implied that Lily had been difficult, distant, and ungrateful. That my relationship with her was not healthy. I was consumed with protecting her from imagined slights. It was horrible. Even worse, it worked. People began reaching out. Aunt Linda texted me to see if I was okay. Uncle John called Ethan and asked if I was having a breakdown. My second cousin Chloe commented on one of Lily's art pieces. You're quite lucky. Don't forget who provided you a home. Lily saw it. I saw her look at it. And that was the final straw. I did not compose a response. I prepared a dossier. Screenshots, messages, photographs, every unanswered invitation, exclusion, and receipt. I prepared a letter that was neither passionate nor angry, but just stated facts. I only sent it to the extended family once, with the subject line indicating who desired the complete tale. I did not ask for sides. I did not demand apologies. I just told them the truth. Some responded, some did not. A few people quietly unfriended Rachel. A few people didn't believe what I said. It didn't matter since I wasn't doing it for them. I was doing this for Lily. So she'd never wonder if she'd dreamt it. So she wouldn't ask again. Do you believe they would like me if I were blood? After that, I blocked anyone who attempted to dispute. Everyone who responded. But maybe if you just talked it out. Everyone who believed that maintaining peace was more essential than protecting a youngster from emotional abuse disguised as family tradition. We never heard from them again. Not directly. I am sure people are still talking about us. I'm sure I'm the anecdote that gets told at parties when someone brings up odd youngsters. I am sure Lily's name is still mentioned in harsh, scornful tones. Allow them to talk. They lost the right to know her. Let's fast ahead. Ma is currently at college. She excelled in her art program. She is still calling me every night. Not out of obligation, but by habit. She sends images of her sketches. Sometimes she asks for my opinion. Sometimes she just wants to say goodnight. When I dropped her off at her dorm, she embraced me for a full minute and said, "I'm not going anywhere." She may have meant physically, but I understood what she meant. People claim you cannot select your family. I did. I chose her. Over bloodshed, guilt, and years of taught quiet. And if they still think I'll come crawling back one day, they can wait. Sometimes I remember that moment on the porch. My mother handed me those cookies, as if they might break years of silence. As if sweets could mend what they never dared to utter aloud. And sometimes late at night, I wonder if I overreacted, if I should have worked more, remained quieter, or been more forgiving. But then I recall the look on Lily's face when I told her, "They don't get to treat you like that." I also remember how firmly she held me before leaving for college. I remember promising her something no one had ever promised me growing up, that I would always choose her. Do you believe I did the correct thing? Thanks for watching and diving into this wild family drama with me. If you love Reddit family drama, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. Mom told everyone I was lucky, not smart. So I opened the letter from the 3% acceptance PhD program and watched her fake smile collapse. When you grow up in a household where love is distributed like rationed soup, one ladle per day with no refills, you quickly learn not to ask for seconds. My mother was not harsh, at least not in the ways that are commonly defined in headlines and family courtrooms. She fed me, dressed me, kept me in school, and replaced my laptop when it failed 2 weeks before senior finals. But her version of love was tinged with skepticism, as if everything nice I achieved was chance or fleeting. I used to assume she didn't believe in celebrating too soon. But by the time I was 16, I'd realized something worse. She simply didn't believe in me. She did not state it outright. That was not her style. Instead, it showed up in the 1,000 little fractures between her words. Like how she'd squint at my report cards, run her finger over the A- as if it were an error, and say, "I mean, this is good, but don't let it get to your head." Or how after I got into my first choice university, Mother responded, "Well, we'll see if you can keep up once you're there." You know, not everyone can handle that sort of pressure. When I secured a summer research position with one of my professors, her initial reaction wasn't, "Congratulations." It was, "Do they pay you?" Or, "Is this one of those free gigs that suck up your time?" Perhaps the worst part was her uncertainty. It was how Mom kept me in the shadow of a man who hadn't lived in our home in over a decade. My father, the phantom dropout, who abandoned me when I was 12 and stopped calling when I became 13. My mother avoided saying his name as much as possible, but she used his failure as a warning label. Every time I made a mistake, no matter how minor, she would say, "You're more like him than you realize." As if my DNA were a ticking time bomb, she had attempted and failed to disperse it. But here's something you don't hear about growing up with low expectations. It can either destroy you or transform you into something sharp. For me, it accomplished both. I became obsessed and relentless. I studied like the world would end if I received anything less than a 90. I filled journals with checklists and timelines, planned each semester 3 months in advance, and double-checked deadlines as if someone was assessing my life on punctuality. But I didn't tell her about much of it. Not when I was accepted into the honors program, or when my instructors nominated me for departmental awards. And certainly not when I was admitted to 3 PhD programs before graduating. I saved everything in a folder on my desk, each letter written on heavy paper with embossed heads and congratulatory signatures that virtually sparkled with approval, because I knew what would happen if I told her. She'd find a way to make it into a warning, or worse, a joke. And so, as the final semester ended, and I came across that stage with my cap falling sideways, and my tummy full of butterflies and pure defiant joy, part of me hoped, really hoped, that she'd say something different. That perhaps, just maybe, this something would shift in her. And she'd see me standing tall in that robe and know I wasn't a ticking bomb or a damaged mirror of my father. I was her daughter, and had made it. After the ceremony, she drew me into a tight hug in the parking lot and said, "Well, you didn't fall on your face, which is something." I laughed, but it did not reach my chest. A few days later, she knocked on my bedroom door as I was preparing books for storage. She had that face she used when she had an idea she knew I would agree with. Brows slightly lifted, voice falsely casual. "I was thinking," she explained, folding her arms. "We should throw you a small graduation party. Backyard. Nothing fancy. Only family and neighbors. You've earned it." I glanced at her, unsure what to say. Not that I was surprised. She enjoyed playing hostess because it made her look good, but part of me was afraid of what else she would do, or say. I paused, and it was louder than any response I could have offered. There were paper lanterns strung between the trees, one of which sagged slightly since the hook on the garage gutter rusted through last summer, and no one bothered to repair it. Plastic tables with dollar store linens bordered the yard's boundaries. Bowls of potato salad sweated in the heat, while a Bluetooth speaker on the deck played a shuffled playlist of music that tried too hard to seem festive. It wasn't fancy, but it required more effort than I anticipated. I told myself that meant something. That maybe this time the good intention would make it through her mouth without turning into a backhanded smack disguised as humor. It was my graduation celebration, the kind you only get once, unless you're the type who collects diplomas like Girl Scout awards. And I wanted to think, even for one afternoon, that I could unwind. That perhaps we could both let go of who we were, and simply enjoy it. I spent the morning hunting for a dress that felt like me, but didn't look like I was trying to impress anyone. I even did my makeup, not because I had to, but because I wanted to commemorate the occasion by presenting a version of myself that felt worthy of being seen. Not graded, not evaluated. Simply observed. There were at least 55 people in the backyard, making it feel much larger than our small house, which can only accommodate about 15 people. Relatives, neighbors, a few classmates, and even a couple of professors appeared out of nowhere, like ghosts from the academic system I was finally breaking free from. I smiled, shook hands, accepted congratulations, and even laughed a few times, like any other person enjoying a milestone. For approximately an hour and a half, I almost convinced myself that everything would be okay. Then she raised her glass. It was nearing the end of the afternoon when the light had softened sufficiently to cast long shadows across the lawn, and people began to drift toward the dessert table for another slice of sheet cake. My mother rose up from her chair, clinking a spoon against her champagne glass in the manner that people do when they want to get someone's attention, but don't want to come across as desperate. Everyone turned. Everybody smiled. Even I grinned hesitantly, my gut tightening like a thread that had just been yanked too tightly. She cleared her throat and held her glass like a microphone and a sword. "Well," she said with a calm voice and bright eyes, "I'd like to thank everyone who came to celebrate my daughter." She pushed hard, and despite our reservations, she made it, pausing for laughing that hadn't yet begun. I felt the air shift, and then it arrived. "We all thought you'd drop out like your dad," she remarked, her smile just wide enough to be photographed. "But look at you. You're proving us incorrect." The laughter was sporadic at first. Nervous. Then somebody snorted. Then someone else chuckled. Within seconds the music spread across the yard like a slow-moving wave. I stood there transfixed and smiling, but only because I couldn't feel my face. I could not feel anything. My hands were cold. My jaw was locked. My pulse felt like it had moved to the wrong side of my throat. She was still smiling and holding her glass, as if she had just made a hilarious, innocent little toast, and couldn't understand why I hadn't joined in. And perhaps she didn't comprehend. Maybe the worst part was that she honestly thought her comment was a light-hearted little roast between loved ones. No knife, no wound, simply a jest, her way of commemorating the occasion. I looked around and noticed that no one was coming to my defense. No one was saying, "Hey, that's not funny," or "That was uncalled for," because it was most likely humorous to them. A snide remark from a mother who had been stern but clearly proud. Right? That is how they read it. That's how they decided to hear it. But I did not. I overheard the words she did not speak. I heard the years behind them, the whispered comparisons, the misgivings, and the continual reminders to not get ahead of yourself. I heard the voice of a lady who never imagined I'd be more than my father's daughter, who saw all of my accomplishments as a fleeting state, rather than a truth. For a minute, I saw myself through her eyes. Lucky, but not capable. A fluke, not a force. Then I reached into my handbag. My hands were still shaking, but I'd had that envelope for weeks, waiting for the proper moment to open it. I didn't expect it to be this moment, but when your mother slaps you with a smile in front of 55 people, your instincts kick in. I pulled it out. The return address is on thick ivory paper and is from a university that only accepts 3% of doctoral applicants. I raised it just high enough for everyone to notice before gently and methodically tearing it open down the side. The audience quieted. My mother's smile faded, and I stared her dead in the eyes as I unfurled the letter. When the air switches from casual to confrontational, laughing not only stops, but dies in the throat. Everyone recognizes right away that they were laughing at the wrong section of the story. That's what it felt like when I opened that letter in front of everyone in the backyard. As if I had ripped the rug out from under their cheap second-hand humor, and challenged them all to hit on something genuine for once. The ivory paper trembled slightly in my hands. Not because I was scared of what it said. I knew exactly what it meant, but I was still determining how much of myself I was willing to reveal to them. But then I looked at my mother, her champagne glass still high, as if she hadn't noticed the punchline had turned against her. I made the decision without realizing it. I wasn't intending on reading this today. I said, voice louder than I expected, the type of loudness that fills space without asking for permission. But since we're making pronouncements about who I am and what I'm capable of, I suppose now is as good a moment as any. A few people shifted uncomfortably in their plastic chairs, eyes darting from me to my mother like they were watching a slow-motion car crash, and couldn't tell which way the debris was going to fly. I cleared my throat and began reading aloud, each word like a scalpel cutting through the day's shallow ceremony. Dear Hilary Langston, we are pleased to offer you full admission to the Department of Comparative Literature's PhD program beginning this fall. In recognition of your outstanding academic record, research portfolio, and personal statement, we are also delighted to extend a full-ride fellowship package, which includes tuition coverage, a $32,000 annual living stipend, and guaranteed teaching assistant opportunities beginning in your second year. We believe you will be a valuable and remarkable addition to our academic community. I hesitated after the final sentence, allowing it to sink in and sting. My mother's smile had vanished, her lips pulled into a line so tight that they appeared to be attempting to disappear from her face completely. I noticed her gaze shift to the throng. She saw the gears turning as she tried to save the image she'd created for this occasion. Proud mother of a daughter who outperformed the odds despite not being born with potential. She seemed to want to say something. Maybe even applaud or try to laugh. But I didn't give her that chance. Funny, I said, folding the letter back into its envelope with meticulous, patient movements, since I don't recall them asking if I was more like my father. I turned and walked away. I did not say farewell. I didn't wait for reactions. I didn't even take a plate of cake on my way out, which was a real shame because I adore lemon sheet cake, and someone had undoubtedly brought a fantastic one. I just kept walking through the gate, down the driveway, and into the street, as if my feet had been waiting for this exit cue all along. By the end of the block, my phone had buzzed in my hand. That was her. The screen displayed her name, a mom in all caps, because I had never changed it since she gave me the phone in high school and urged me to only use it for emergencies and assignments. However, neither of those things were called for, and I knew it without even responding. I gazed at the ringing phone, my finger hesitating over the screen. Part of me wanted to respond and hear what excuse she had come up with. Her well-constructed half-apology would drift past me like an emotional olive branch. Perhaps she would say it was a joke. Perhaps she would say I misunderstood. Perhaps she would cry. But I did not tap the screen. I just let it ring because I knew it wasn't going to be the kind of call where someone says, "I'm sorry I hurt you." Instead, it was going to be the kind where someone says, "You didn't have to embarrass me like that." Or, "I was just trying to be funny." Or, "I can't believe you made such a scene at your own party." People, including my mother, never apologized for the wound. They simply blame you for bleeding. The phone soon stopped vibrating, and I placed it back into my purse without hesitation. My heart was still beating, but it was due to clarity rather than panic. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel obligated to explain who I was or how I had gotten here. I didn't feel the need to return to that yard and smooth the edges of her misery, just so I could be comfortable in my own skin. The world did not end when I went away. In fact, it seemed like the beginning. Her first call came just after dark. And it wasn't the sound of a mother swallowing her pride. It was the voice of a lady attempting to reattach her mask before anyone noticed it had slipped. Her tone was tight, but casual, a touch too light, as if she'd practiced how she believed an understanding mother should sound like. And now she was attempting it for the first time over the phone. "Hillary," she continued, pausing just long enough to sound annoyed but not regretful. "I'm not sure why you got so furious. That was a joke. Do you know how people do those funny little roasts at graduation parties? I was just trying to make light of the situation. Everybody was laughing. Nobody thought I meant it, but she did. And we both knew it since jokes don't land as hard unless they've been honed beforehand. They don't stick unless they're immersed in something that's been seething beneath the surface for a long time. And hers had been simmering since I was 12, when my father walked out and Mom looked me in the eyes and said, 'He left us because he couldn't handle responsibility. You'd better hope you're stronger than that.' I spent years interpreting that remark as a prophecy, or worse, a warning. I based my entire personality on proving her wrong. But it only needed one statement at a party to remind me how little she felt I could succeed. So, when she said I was just trying to make light of it, all I could do was sit there in my apartment, phone pressed to my cheek, staring at the wall as if it might give me the words I couldn't find, and finally say, "That wasn't your moment to make light of. It was mine." She didn't respond right away, and when she did, her voice dropped into that bitter, wounded register she always slipped into when things didn't go her way. "You've been tough to communicate with for years," she responded. "It's like everything I say offends you. Your father always twisted everything I said too, and now you do it just like he did." That was the final straw. That sentence. The same ghost in each chamber was summoned again. My father. I'm not sure what drove me to do it, but after I hung up, I opened my laptop and looked for him. The last I heard, he had gone to Arizona with a new woman named Lydia, who worked with him in computer sales or something. We hadn't spoken for a decade. I wasn't sure if he wanted to hear from me, and I wasn't sure I wanted to hear from him either. But after hearing his narrative exclusively through my mother's voice for so long, I began to wonder what it sounded like on its own. It took me approximately 20 minutes to find an email address and have enough courage to write anything that did not seem like a therapeutic exercise or a demand. I replied I had graduated. I thought you should know. If you want to talk, I am willing to listen. I did not expect him to respond. He finished within 2 hours. 2 days later, I boarded a plane and flew across 2 states to sit across from a man I hadn't seen since I was just old enough to vote. He appeared older, but not in a bad way. Grayer around the temples, slightly slower to move, but still very much himself, which was both comforting and disconcerting. We met at a quiet little diner on the outskirts of town, where no one knew our names and didn't care what we were saying, and it felt like the safest place in the world to have the kind of talk that might shatter your entire childhood. He didn't waste time exchanging niceties. I figured this would happen one day, he said, sipping coffee from a chipped ceramic mug. But I didn't think it would take 10 years. I nodded, not sure how to explain that it had taken 10 years, because I wasn't ready to find out that everything I'd believed about him might be wrong, or worse, that it might be correct. I just need to know, I replied, my voice tense and my heart racing in my ears. Why did you leave? He glanced down for a long while, as if he were digging through a memory drawer he hadn't opened in years, and when he finally began, his voice was low and steady, without reproach, but full of weight. She offered me an ultimatum, he explained. The last time we fought, she said I wasn't strong enough to be your father, because I didn't treat you like a soldier. If I didn't agree to raise you the way she wanted, she would make sure you thought I was the problem. And I told her I wasn't going to turn you into someone afraid of her own mother. I packed my bag the next day. The words landed with a dull thud in my chest. I'd always imagined him walking out casually, a duffel bag slung over one shoulder, never looking back. But that wasn't the story he told. Even if it wasn't the whole truth, because every story has at least 3 sides, it cracked something open in me. For the first time, I didn't see him as a coward, but as a man who fled to avoid becoming something worse. Why didn't you ever tell me that? I asked barely above a whisper. Because she told me if I tried, he said, she'd make sure you never spoke to me again. And for a while, it worked. When I flew home the next day, I didn't call her. I didn't text her. And I didn't send her the graduation photos that my friends had taken, despite the fact that I looked genuinely happy in a few of them for the first time in months, because I had a different image in my head. A daughter standing between 2 broken people, finally asking which one handed her the hammer. Coming home from a trip that splits your reality in 2 is strange, like stepping back into a life that is still dressed in your clothes, but doesn't quite fit anymore. The furniture is the same. The kitchen smells faintly of lemon cleaner and old coffee grounds, and the front door still squeaks slightly when it opens. But you're different. Or maybe not. Maybe you're just finally aware of how much of yourself you've been squeezing into someone else's version of who you were supposed to be. The morning after I returned from visiting my father, I stood in the driveway for a full 3 minutes before going inside, just staring at the chipped paint on the front porch, and wondering how many conversations had been swallowed by the silence in that house. When I finally stepped through the door, she was sitting in the living room, her legs crossed at the ankle, reading a magazine she probably wasn't really reading. She didn't look up right away, but I could feel her sensing my presence like an animal feels an earthquake. Tense, alert, pretending everything's still calm. When she finally met my gaze, her expression was carefully neutral, as if she was waiting to see which version of me had returned home. "Did you have a good trip?" she asked, as if we were 2 coworkers passing each other at the water cooler. Not a mother and daughter whose last conversation had ended in public humiliation and a 10-year secret detonating in my chest. I didn't respond. Instead, I put down my bag, walked to the edge of the living room rug, and stood there just far enough away that she'd have to tilt her head to meet my gaze. I didn't sit either. I didn't drop my keys. I didn't pretend this was anything other than what it was. An exorcism of every unspoken thing that had been rotting between us since the day my father left, and she decided to turn that into her power play. "I talked to Dad," I said, letting the words hang like smoke. She blinked but didn't flinch. "Oh," she said, as if I'd mentioned running into an old high school friend. "How is he?" "He told me why he left," I said. "He told me everything." She put down the magazine, then slowly, carefully folded it closed as if it mattered. "I'm sure he did," she said, crossing her arms, "and I'm sure he made himself sound like the hero." I took a deep breath, not to calm down, but to study the blade I was about to lay across the table. "He said you gave him a choice, and that staying would have meant watching you transform me into a version of yourself. He couldn't stand, that you said he wasn't strong enough to raise me right, and that if he left, I'd think he was a coward." Her lips twitched slightly. "And you believed him?" she asked, her voice flat. "I didn't want to," I said. "But then I thought of the toast. I recalled every time you compared me to him as if it were an insult. I reflected on how you made me feel as if loving him meant betraying you, and how you utilized his quiet to create the tale that worked for you." Something flickered in her eyes then. Maybe regret, or the first crack in the armor she'd been wearing so long it probably felt like skin. But she didn't say anything, and I didn't stop. "You told me he was weak, and maybe he was, but you made strength look like punishment, and love feel like a challenge I had to pass. And you act like I've been angry for no reason, like I've spent years trying to push you away. But you never looked at how hard I had to fight just to keep myself together around you." She stood slowly, arms still folded, but her voice softer now. "I did the best I could," she said. "I know, and I don't hate you for it, but your best left a mark." There was a long pause, then, a silence so thick, I could feel it pressing against my ribs. I picked up my keys from the counter, the ones I'd been carrying since high school. I looked like I didn't care, but I did. "I'm not trying to punish you," I added. "I just needed to say it out loud. Not for revenge, not for drama, but for me." She nodded stiffly, uncertainly. Still wearing the same fading purple lanyard with the little cracked charm at the end, I walked to the front door, opened it halfway, and then stopped. She didn't ask me to stay or tell me to leave. She just stood there. And I stood there. For a moment I wondered if this was the end, or if it was just the beginning of something quieter, slower, less about blame and more about what remains when all the illusions are gone. I stared down at the key in my palm. She built a house with guilt in its walls, then asked why I never felt at home. Thanks for watching and sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed these stories, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next drama-filled episode. After my wife had an affair, I revealed to my 14-year-old son that I am not his biological father. Am I the A? My name is David, and I'm 37 years old. I've been married to Emily, who is 36, for the past 10 years. We have built a life together, raising our son, Josh, who is now 14. When I first met Emily, she was a single mom, doing her best to provide for Josh. Her strength and dedication to her son were among the qualities that drew me to her. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue, and I was immediately taken by her kindness and resilience. Emily told me early on about her situation, how Josh's biological father, Mark, had fled the state upon learning of her pregnancy. Mark had never been a part of Josh's life, leaving Emily to face the challenges of single motherhood alone. As our relationship grew, I fell in love not only with Emily but also with Josh. He was just 4 years old when I came into their lives, a bright and curious child who quickly found a place in my heart. Emily and I dated for 2 years before I proposed, and from the moment we decided to build a future together, I embraced the role of Josh's father. It wasn't just a title for me, it was a commitment to being there for him, guiding him, and loving him as if he were my own flesh and blood. Despite the absence of his biological father, Josh thrived. He called me Dad from the beginning, a title I wore with pride. Emily and I made a pact early on about how to handle the topic of Josh's paternity. We agreed that we would tell him the truth when he turned 20. We believed that by then, he would be mature enough to understand the complexities of life and relationships, and we wanted to ensure he felt secure and loved in our family before introducing such a potentially disruptive truth. Our decision was rooted in love and the desire to protect Josh's childhood. We wanted him to grow up without the confusion and pain that might come from knowing his biological father had abandoned him. Instead, we focused on creating a stable, loving environment. Emily was an incredible partner in this journey. She balanced work and motherhood with grace, and we worked as a team to give Josh the best possible upbringing. Family life was mostly harmonious. We had our routines, our traditions, and our moments of joy and laughter. Weekends were often spent at Josh's soccer games, followed by family dinners where we would talk about everything from school to his latest interests. Emily and I took turns helping with homework, and we made sure to have regular family outings to foster a sense of unity and adventure. In the quiet moments, after Josh had gone to bed, Emily and I would sometimes discuss the future and our plan to eventually tell him about his biological father. It was a conversation filled with hope and a bit of anxiety. We knew it wouldn't be easy, but we believed in our decision. Our goal was always to approach the truth with honesty and compassion when the time was right. Life had settled into a predictable rhythm, a comfort that I had come to cherish. Emily and I had built a routine that worked for us, balancing careers, parenting, and making time for each other. Josh, now 14, was growing into a fine young man. His soccer games, school activities, and our family dinners formed the backbone of our daily lives. I had no reason to believe anything was amiss until one seemingly ordinary afternoon changed everything. It started innocuously enough. I was at work, immersed in a project, when I received a call from my old friend Mike. Mike and I had known each other since college, and although we didn't see each other as often as we used to, we still kept in touch. His voice had an unusual edge to it as he asked if I could meet him for a drink after work. Sensing the urgency in his tone, I agreed, my curiosity piqued. We met at a small bar downtown, a place we used to frequent in our younger days. Mike was already there, nursing a beer, his expression serious. After some small talk, he finally came to the point. "David, I need to tell you something, and it's not easy, but you have the right to know." My heart began to race. Mike was rarely this solemn. I braced myself for whatever he was about to reveal. "Emily. I've seen her with another man, more than once." I didn't want to believe it at first, but the evidence is there. I felt as though the floor had dropped out from under me. "What do you mean? Are you sure?" I managed to ask, my voice barely a whisper. Mike nodded, his eyes filled with sympathy. "I've seen them together, David. At a restaurant, and once leaving a hotel. I'm sorry, man, but it looks like she's been having an affair." Disbelief, anger, and a deep sense of betrayal surged through me. Emily? My Emily? The woman I had loved and trusted for the past decade? I couldn't fathom it. Yet Mike had no reason to lie to me, and the look on his face confirmed that this was no prank or misunderstanding. I left the bar in a daze, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. How could she do this? Why? Our life together, our family, it all seemed like a cruel joke now. By the time I reached home, my emotions had shifted from shock to a cold, seething rage. I had to confront her. I needed the truth. Emily was in the kitchen when I walked in, preparing dinner as if nothing was wrong. The sight of her, so normal and familiar, only fueled my anger. I couldn't keep it in any longer. "Emily, we need to talk." "Now," I said, my voice trembling with barely controlled fury. She looked up, surprised by my tone. "What's wrong, David?" "Are you having an affair?" I asked bluntly, watching her face closely for any sign of guilt or denial. For a moment, she just stared at me, stunned. Then she shook her head. "What? No, of course not. Where is this coming from?" "Don't lie to me, Emily," I snapped. "Mike saw you. He saw you with another man. Leaving a hotel, for God's sake. Just tell me the truth." Her eyes widened in shock, and for a moment, I thought she might deny it again. But then something in her expression changed, and she looked away, unable to meet my gaze. "David, How long?" I interrupted, my voice rising. "How long has this been going on?" "A few months," she admitted quietly, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "David, I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. I never meant to hurt you." Her words were like a knife to my heart. A mistake? Months of betrayal reduced to a single word. I felt a surge of anger so intense I could barely contain it. "A mistake? You think this is just a mistake? Do you have any idea what you've done to us? To our family?" Emily broke down, sobbing. But I couldn't find it in myself to comfort her. My mind was reeling, and my emotions were a chaotic storm. The woman I had loved and trusted had shattered our life together, and I couldn't see a way to piece it back together. I needed to get out, to clear my head. Without another word, I turned and left the house, leaving Emily crying in the kitchen. I drove aimlessly for hours, trying to process what I had learned. The image of Emily with another man haunted me, and the thought of her betrayal cut deep. I felt like a fool, blind to the reality of my own life. As I sat in the park that night, the weight of my discovery pressed heavily on my chest. Emily's betrayal felt like a physical wound, raw and throbbing. I thought about the life we had built, the promises we had made, and most importantly, Josh. The thought of keeping this secret any longer seemed unbearable. He deserved to know the truth, even if it was painful. The sooner he knew, The sooner we could start healing, no matter how difficult the process might be. When I returned home, the house was eerily quiet. Emily was still in the kitchen, her eyes swollen and red from crying. She looked up as I walked in, hope flickering in her eyes, but I couldn't meet her gaze. I went straight to Josh's room, each step feeling heavier than the last. I knocked gently on his door. "Josh, can I come in?" "Sure, Dad," came his muffled reply. I pushed the door open to find him sprawled on his bed, earbuds in, playing a game on his phone. He looked up, sensing the gravity in my demeanor, and pulled out his earbuds. "What's up?" "Can we talk for a minute?" I asked, sitting down on the edge of his bed. He nodded, curiosity and concern mixing in his eyes. I took a deep breath, knowing there was no easy way to start this conversation. "Josh, there's something really important I need to tell you. It's not going to be easy to hear, but you need to know the truth." I paused, gathering my thoughts. "Your mom? She's been seeing someone else." His reaction was immediate and intense. "What? No way. Mom wouldn't do that," he said, shaking his head as if trying to dispel the idea. "I know it's hard to believe, but it's true. She admitted it to me tonight." My voice was steady, but inside I was unraveling. "And there's something else. Something we've kept from you for a long time." His eyes widened, and I could see the fear and confusion there. "What is it?" "Josh, I'm not your biological father. Your mom was pregnant when I met her. Your biological father left before you were born. I've raised you as my own because I love you more than anything, but I think it's time you knew the truth." For a moment, he just stared at me, his face a mask of shock. Then the tears started to well up, and he shook his head again. No. You're my dad. You've always been my dad." I reached out, pulling him into a hug, my own tears threatening to spill over. "I am your dad, Josh. Nothing can change that. I love you, and I always will. But you deserve to know the truth, no matter how hard it is." He clung to me, sobbing, and I held him tightly, my heart breaking for him. The pain in his voice was almost too much to bear. "Why did she do this? Why did she lie to me?" "I don't know, buddy. I wish I had answers for you. But what I do know is that I'm here for you. We'll get through this together." After a while, his sobs subsided, and he pulled away, wiping his eyes. "I want to talk to Mom." "Okay," I said, my voice soft. "She's downstairs." Josh stood up, his face set with determination. I followed him as he made his way to the kitchen. Emily looked up as we entered, her expression a mixture of hope and dread. "Mom," Josh said, his voice trembling but strong. "Is it true? Are you having an affair? And is Dad really not my biological father?" Emily's face crumpled, and she nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Yes, it's true. I'm so sorry, Josh. I never wanted to hurt you." Josh's face contorted with pain and anger. "How could you do this? How could you lie to me all these years?" His voice was rising, the hurt and betrayal evident in every word. Emily reached out to him, but he stepped back, shaking his head. "Don't. Just don't. I can't even look at you right now." "Josh, please," Emily pleaded, but he turned away, looking to me for support. I stepped forward, putting a protective arm around his shoulders. "It's okay, Josh. We'll figure this out. You're not alone in this." He nodded, leaning into me, and I could feel the tension in his body. "I don't want to stay here tonight. Can we go somewhere else?" "Of course," I said. "Let's pack a bag and go to a hotel for the night. We need some space to think." Emily's sobs grew louder as we turned to leave, but I couldn't bring myself to comfort her. Her actions had torn our family apart, and right now, my priority was Josh. We went back to his room and packed a bag, then did the same for myself. We left the house in silence, the weight of the evening's revelations hanging heavy in the air. At the hotel, we checked in and went up to our room. Josh sat on one of the beds, looking lost and small. I sat down beside him, putting an arm around his shoulders. "I'm sorry you had to find out like this," I said softly. "I wanted to tell you when you were older, when you could understand better. But I couldn't keep it from you any longer." He nodded, his eyes filled with pain. "I get it. I don't know what to think anymore." "That's okay," I reassured him. "It's a lot to take in. But remember, I'm here for you. We're in this together." We spent the rest of the night talking, crying, and trying to make sense of the situation. I reassured him over and over that my love for him hadn't changed, that he was still my son in every way that mattered. Gradually, the tension eased, and he fell asleep, exhausted from the emotional turmoil. As I watched him sleep, my heart ached for the innocence he had lost tonight. Emily's betrayal had shattered more than just our marriage. It had upended Josh's world. But I vowed to do everything in my power to help him through this, to rebuild our lives and find a new sense of normalcy. In the quiet of the hotel room, I allowed myself to grieve for the life we had lost. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Josh and I would face it together, stronger for having faced this storm. The morning after our confrontation with Emily, Josh and I woke up in the hotel room, the weight of the previous night's revelations still heavy in the air. I looked over at my son, still sleeping, his face peaceful despite the emotional turmoil he had endured. I knew that today would be another difficult day, filled with conversations and decisions that would shape our future. When Josh finally stirred, he looked at me with eyes full of uncertainty. "What happens now, Dad?" he asked, his voice small and hesitant. "We take it one step at a time," I replied, trying to sound confident. "We'll figure things out together." We had breakfast at the hotel, the silence between us punctuated by brief, reassuring comments. I could see the pain in Josh's eyes, the betrayal he felt from his mother still raw and fresh. He barely touched his food, and I found it hard to eat as well, my appetite lost to the churning emotions inside me. After breakfast, I called my workplace to inform them I needed some personal time. They were understanding, given the circumstances. I also contacted a divorce lawyer, setting up an appointment for later in the week. The reality of our situation was sinking in, and I knew we had to start making concrete plans. Returning home was difficult. The house, once a place of comfort and security, now felt tainted by the betrayal that had occurred within its walls. Emily was in the living room when we walked in, her eyes red and puffy from crying. She looked at Josh, her face full of regret and desperation. "Josh, can we please talk?" she pleaded, her voice trembling. But Josh didn't even acknowledge her. He walked past her, heading straight to his room and shutting the door firmly behind him. Emily turned to me, her eyes begging for understanding. "David, please, can't we work through this? I love you both so much. I made a mistake, but I want to fix this." I shook my head, feeling a mixture of anger and sadness. "Emily, you didn't just make a mistake. You made a choice, over and over again. And now, we all have to live with the consequences." She broke down, sobbing, but I couldn't bring myself to comfort her. I went to Josh's room, knocking softly before entering. He was sitting on his bed, staring at the wall, his face a mask of hurt and confusion. "Hey buddy," I said gently. "How are you holding up?" He shrugged, not meeting my eyes. "I don't know, Dad. I just feel lost." I sat down next to him, putting an arm around his shoulders. "It's okay to feel that way. This is a lot to take in. But we're going to get through this together. I promise." The days that followed were a blur of tension and emotional upheaval. Josh continued to reject any attempts by Emily to speak with him. He spent most of his time with me, clinging to the stability I represented in his now chaotic world. We talked a lot, trying to process everything that had happened. I reassured him repeatedly that my love for him hadn't changed, and that we would find a way to move forward. Emily's presence in the house became increasingly strained. She tried to reach out to Josh, but he shut her down every time. The distance between them grew, and it was painful to watch. Despite my anger towards her, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. She had made terrible choices, but she was still his mother, and the estrangement was clearly breaking her heart. Inside me, a storm of conflicting emotions raged. Part of me felt justified in my anger and the steps I was taking towards divorce. Emily had betrayed me in the worst possible way, and the trust we had built over a decade was shattered. But another part of me felt guilt and sorrow. I mourned the life we had lost, the dreams we had shared, and the family that was now fractured. Josh's strong attachment to me was both a comfort and a burden. I was grateful for his trust and love, but I also worried about the long-term impact of this rift with his mother. I tried to encourage him to at least listen to her, to give her a chance to explain, but he was resolute in his rejection. After days of emotional turmoil, sleepless nights, and countless tears, I made a firm decision. I needed to seek a divorce lawyer. The betrayal was too deep, the trust too shattered, and I couldn't see a way to rebuild what Emily and I once had. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about Josh and ensuring he had a stable, loving environment to grow up in. I found a reputable lawyer through a recommendation from a colleague. The first step was setting up an appointment to discuss my situation and understand the legal process ahead. Walking into the lawyer's office, I felt a mixture of determination and dread. I knew this was the right path, but it didn't make it any less painful. The lawyer, a calm and experienced woman named Sandra, listened attentively as I explained the situation. She asked probing questions about our marriage, Emily's affair, and my relationship with Josh. She was particularly interested in the timing and context of my revelation to Josh about his biological father, emphasizing how these factors could play into the custody arrangements. "Sandra, my primary concern is Josh," I explained. "I want to ensure he's with me and in a stable environment. He's been through enough already." She nodded, understanding. Custody battles can be complex, but the court does take into account the child's preferences, especially at Josh's age. His expressed desire to stay with you will carry significant weight. This brought a sense of relief. Josh had made it clear he wanted to be with me, rejecting his mother after learning about her betrayal. His strong attachment to me, while heartbreaking in its context, could be a crucial factor in securing primary custody. Sandra walked me through the initial steps of the divorce process. Filing the petition, serving Emily with the papers, and setting up a temporary custody arrangement. It was a lot to take in, but I felt more prepared having a clear plan laid out. When I returned home that evening, the atmosphere was tense. Emily knew something was up, but she didn't press me for details. I went to Josh's room, finding him immersed in his homework. Sitting beside him, I gently explained what would happen next. "Josh, I've spoken to a lawyer. We're going to start the process of a divorce. It means things will change, but I'm doing everything I can to make sure you stay with me." He looked up, his eyes wide but calm. "I want to be with you, Dad. I don't want to live with Mom." "I know, buddy. And your preference matters. The court will listen to what you want." He nodded, seeming reassured. "Thanks, Dad. I just want this to be over." As the days turned into weeks, the reality of my decision began to settle in. I had initiated the divorce proceedings, taken steps towards securing custody of Josh, and started to envision a future without Emily. But with each step forward, I couldn't shake the gnawing sense of guilt that crept in during the quiet moments. I found myself constantly reflecting on my actions. Telling Josh the truth about his biological father and his mother's affair was a decision made in the heat of the moment, driven by a mix of anger and a desire for honesty. But was it the right thing to do? Had I acted out of spite, using the truth as a weapon to hurt Emily and inadvertently Josh? The guilt was overwhelming at times. I replayed the confrontation in my mind, seeing Josh's face crumple with the weight of my words. He was just a boy, caught in the crossfire of adult conflicts, forced to grapple with truths that even I struggled to process. I felt a pang of sorrow every time I saw him retreat into himself, a shadow of the carefree child he once was. Balancing these feelings of guilt was the ever-present sense of betrayal by Emily. Her affair had torn apart the fabric of our family, shattering the trust that we had built over a decade. I oscillated between anger at her betrayal and sadness for what we had lost. There were moments when I felt like the victim, justified in my actions, and other times when I questioned if I had compounded the hurt by revealing everything to Josh so abruptly. One evening, as I sat alone in the living room, the weight of it all pressed down on me. Emily had gone to stay with her sister temporarily, giving us some space, but her absence was palpable. The house felt emptier, the silence louder. I thought about our life together, the good times, the laughter, the plans we had made. It was all gone now, reduced to a series of painful memories. I knew that part of dealing with the consequences of my actions meant accepting my own role in the unfolding drama. I had to confront my feelings of guilt and betrayal head on. It wasn't just about being a victim, it was about taking responsibility for my choices and their impact on Josh. In the end, I understood that while I couldn't change the past, I could influence the future. I could be the stable presence Josh needed, guiding him through this storm with love and understanding. And in doing so, perhaps I could find a way to forgive myself too. Brother made my life hell, then got my wife pregnant. Now he wants my help after our parents disowned him and left me their $2 million inheritance. My younger brother, David, has always harbored a deep-seated resentment towards me. If you think it stemmed from jealousy, you'd be wrong. He was the favored child, not me. There was no reason for him to be envious. To give you some context, our mother always indulged David. He was the golden child of our family. She cooked his meals, did his laundry, and even asked me to help him with his schoolwork. I was expected to assist him simply because we were family, but I never received the same consideration. I accepted this, as I was quite independent. Perhaps it was partly my fault for always meeting his needs without expecting anything in return. He never helped me when I needed it, and only approached me when he wanted something. While I was a quiet, introverted kid who enjoyed studying and keeping to myself, he was loud and rough, just like our dad. I also tend to be straightforward and honest, never sugarcoating things. I believe my mother may have developed a negative perception of me because of my straightforwardness. This favoritism made David the family's darling, and I didn't mind it while we were growing up. However, problems began when he started bullying and mocking me for being different from him. He would tease me about my height and the fact that I wore glasses. He would sneak into my room, read my diary, and then complain to my mom about what I had written. When I yelled at him and complained to our parents about him invading my privacy, they would laugh it off, saying it wasn't a big deal. He did more awful things, like nearly breaking my glasses and putting nasty things in my food. He even once put little stones in my cereal, but luckily, I found them before they could damage my teeth. When I told my mom, she dismissed it, saying this is how brothers bond. Whenever we fought, David would zero in on my insecurities to insult me. We went to the same school, so he knew I was being bullied by a few kids. Instead of supporting me, he sided with the bullies, calling me names like ugly loser or hairy monkey, and encouraging them to physically harm me, saying I was just a big failure. Another time, during a fight over something trivial that I can't even remember, he told me to kill myself. While I could easily brush off most insults, that one really hurt because I was struggling with my mental health at the time. I'm doing better now, but it was devastating to hear that my own brother wanted me dead. Since Dad was often at work and Mom didn't seem to care much, she even scolded me once, claiming it was my fault for irritating him. Things progressively worsened. During high school, there was a shocking incident when David attempted to set my hair on fire, and unbelievably, our mother defended him, claiming he was merely playing. Seriously, who behaves like that? Thankfully, my dad eventually sided with me and pointed out the gravity of the situation. He even threatened to call the police on David. This moment was a real eye-opener for my brother, as he had never faced any consequences for his actions before. He was genuinely stunned, and my dad made it clear that enough was enough and that David needed to start respecting his older brother. Later, Dad came into my room to talk. I never expected his support because he always told David how similar they were, which was true. Dad admitted that he had waited for years, hoping David would mature, but he was slowly realizing that David was becoming a big bully. Hearing this from my dad was incredibly validating, and I almost broke down in tears. I confessed everything David had done to me over the years and even mentioned the bullying at school. My dad was shocked at how much I had endured. The next day, he spoke to the principal to ensure the bullies were warned about severe consequences if they continued. Later that evening, Dad enrolled me in MMA at our local gym, telling me I needed to man up and stand up to bullies in my life. I admit that a nerdy kid like me trying to learn to fight might have seemed laughable, but I was very focused. I managed my time well to balance my studies and daily workouts, and the MMA classes completely changed my life and physique. One day, David was up to his antics again. He stole my pocket money, which we received for helping with chores. I had been saving it for a while. David sneaked into my room and took it. I caught him just as he was about to cycle off with his friends. I demanded he return my money, but David mocked me, saying all I could do was run to Daddy for help. I don't know what came over me, but I punched him in the face. He was stunned, fell backward, and I retrieved my money from his pocket before throwing him back down. David started crying loudly, which was quite comical. However, my mother rushed out to help him and find out what happened. When she learned I had fought him, she was surprised and reprimanded me, saying I should be a better role model for David, who seemed to enjoy seeing me scolded. My mother also complained to my dad about my behavior, saying I needed to be controlled. My dad grimly asked both of us to explain ourselves. I told him how David had stolen the money I had worked hard for and saved, while David tried to justify it by saying he needed the money for a date, and that as his brother, I should help him. However, Dad told David he was lucky I only punched him for stealing because anyone else would have called the police. He continued to tell David that he had no right to take others' things without their consent. David didn't like that and threw a tantrum, likely hoping our mother would side with him, but Dad remained firm. When David realized he wasn't going to be punished for being hit, he screamed how much he hated me and ran back to his room, locking himself in. Following that incident, David began to distance himself from me. He had finally understood that he couldn't bully me anymore, and that even Dad had stopped supporting his antics. For the first time in a long while, I felt like we were equals. Though he could no longer physically harm me, he resorted to verbal insults when our parents weren't around. His behavior worsened with age, becoming angrier and more short-tempered each year. When I approached him with a question, he would ignore me and walk away, muttering insults like nerd or loser under his breath. If he needed to communicate something, he would relay it through our mother instead of speaking to me directly. When I questioned her about why David couldn't just talk to me, she would urge me to be more understanding. I couldn't tell if it was just puberty or genuine hatred. Over time, dealing with his comments became unbearable, and I longed to move out and get away from him. I repeatedly asked my mother to mediate a sit-down conversation for us to resolve our issues, but she always refused, saying she didn't want to get involved. When I asked her opinion on why David treated me this way, she would brush off the question. Eventually, I left for my dream university, having earned a scholarship as a top student. My dad threw a party for me, and even my mom seemed proud. However, David remained aloof and distant, barely acknowledging my achievements. The day I left for university was a mix of excitement for the future and relief to escape the toxic home environment. The first few months at university were liberating. I made new friends, enjoyed my classes, and started to build a life separate from the oppressive atmosphere of my childhood. The constant fear of David's verbal attacks lifted, giving me a newfound sense of peace. During my second year, I met my wife Karen at a frat party through a friend, and we immediately clicked. Coming from a religious background, having kids outside of marriage was frowned upon. However, when we discovered she was pregnant in our final year, we decided to marry right after graduation. Our wedding was a small but joyful ceremony. Our parents were happy for us, and we enjoyed the celebration. At that moment, I believed Karen was the love of my life. I had always envisioned a monogamous relationship, one woman to come home to and share my life with. Despite other women showing interest over the years, I never pursued anything because I was genuinely content in my marriage. Karen was my dream girl, and I never wanted to hurt her. However, I later uncovered 2 incidents of infidelity in our marriage. One was an intermittent affair with her married co-worker that spanned several years, and the other was a brief fling with an ex-boyfriend during a visit to her family. Some might think I was naive, and looking back, I can't completely disagree. Each time we separated for a while, I chose to forgive my wife. I didn't want to raise our child in a broken home and believed we could overcome these obstacles. The affair with her co-worker happened when we were young, and I attributed it to youthful mistakes and poor judgment. For a period, things seemed to get better. Although I could never fully trust her again, I did my best to set aside my doubts, knowing that if I chose to forgive, I had to genuinely work toward a fresh start. It's been 4 years since her second betrayal, and I felt confident in my decision to give her another chance. Karen seemed to have changed, and we were genuinely happy, planning our family's future. However, 3 months ago, my world was shattered once more when she revealed that she had been having a long-term affair and suggested that our son might not be mine. Her words struck me like a ton of bricks. A mix of shock, betrayal, and disbelief overwhelmed me. I struggled to comprehend the enormity of her confession. In a daze, I managed to ask why she had kept such a significant secret and how she could have done something so devastating. Her reaction was cold and indifferent, as if she were detached from the pain she caused. Her vague responses left me with more questions than answers. It was a surreal and painful moment, confronting the shattered trust and uncertainty about my own family. I continued to press Karen for the truth because I felt I deserved to know the father of the child I had been raising since birth. Ultimately, she admitted it was David. My eyes widened in shock as I asked Karen what she meant. She explained that she and David had become friends when I introduced her to my family, and she stayed with us from Thanksgiving until New Year's. David, usually cold to me, was warm and polite towards her, which made me glad because I didn't want Karen to feel unwelcome. Karen wanted to be accepted into my family, so she spent significant time with my mom whenever possible. She noticed the rift between David and me and questioned me about it. I opened up about our strained relationship and explained that we might never repair it due to his unresolved feelings. Karen understood but started including David in our outings, hoping it would help us bond. Whenever we planned to watch a movie, she invited David, and we watched whatever he chose. During this time, David and I exchanged a few words, which was an improvement compared to his usual silent treatment. I remember Karen and David hanging out and playing video games together, but I never thought much of it. Karen told me that one day, David opened up to her about his struggles and a recent breakup. Feeling vulnerable, he struck up a friendship with her. She mentioned that he would harmlessly flirt with her when I wasn't around, and eventually, things escalated beyond her control. The vision of my wife and brother sleeping together made me feel sick. Karen confessed that she felt guilty afterward and left him, which matched her abrupt decision to go home instead of spending New Year's with me. Although I tried to convince her to stay, she was adamant about leaving. When we met back at college after the holidays, she was her usual cheerful self, so I didn't question anything. 2 weeks later, we found out she was pregnant. Karen admitted she didn't know if the child was mine or David's, and with no way to prove it, she chose to stay with me, knowing I was the more dependable brother. This was why we got married. My world felt like it was crashing down. The son I loved might not even be mine. I asked Karen if she had been sleeping with David recently, and she slowly nodded. She revealed that they had always stayed in touch because their chemistry was undeniable. They would sneak off to hotels, lying to me about working overtime. She admitted that half of her business trips were actually romantic getaways with him. I asked why she married me if she wanted my brother, and Karen said she didn't want to be the one to break off the marriage. She saw me as a wonderful father to our son and decided to stay. In her words, she made a mistake and didn't know when to stop. I told Karen I was glad she told me the truth but that I was going to pack up and leave. She started crying, asking for forgiveness, and expected me to yell at her. Instead, I calmly packed my clothes. Karen insisted that if I loved her, I should fight for her and that mistakes happen in every marriage. When she realized I wasn't going to do anything, she changed tactics, saying our son would be affected by a divorce and that children shouldn't be raised in broken homes. I reminded her that I might not even be the father, which made her cry more and accuse me of being cruel. It seemed like she believed nothing could make me want to leave the marriage. Perhaps it was partly my fault for letting things slide in the past. While I did love her, it felt more like it stemmed from thinking we had a son together and had been together since college. Karen kept insisting it wasn't too late to fix things, but I struggled to believe her and had no patience left. Trust was a major issue, and her words felt hollow. Even if I forgave her, I could never forget she slept with my brother. I've always believed in forgiving mistakes because we're all flawed, but this was beyond acceptable limits. I left her crying on the doorstep and checked into a hotel. The next day, I went straight to my parents and revealed everything about my wife's affair with David, explaining how they had been secretly sleeping together for years. The shock on their faces was undeniable. True to her nature, my mother initially tried to defend David, insisting that her boy could never do such a thing to his own brother. Determined to expose the truth, I asked my parents to remain silent and let me call David in front of them. I instructed them to stay quiet so I could catch David off guard, making him believe it was a private conversation. When David answered the phone, I confronted him about the affair. At first he vehemently denied it, refusing to accept any responsibility. However, when I told him that Karen had admitted to everything, he started blaming her, calling her characterless. He claimed it wasn't his fault if women were attracted to him and that he was the better-looking brother. I told him firmly that I would expose him to everyone. When David mocked me, saying no one would believe me because he was the golden child, I scoffed at his arrogance and thanked him for confirming the truth, knowing our parents had heard everything. David went quiet and then spluttered, trying to explain himself and salvage his image. My mother, still in shock, demanded an explanation from David. He stuttered through a feeble attempt to justify his actions, blaming everyone else but himself and desperately trying to shift the blame onto Karen. I could see my mother, who had once been protective of her favored son, now felt a mix of disappointment and anger. In that charged moment, I felt a strange sense of vindication. For years, I had endured David's torment. Now, the truth was out, and the roles were reversed. It was David who stood exposed, his actions laid bare for everyone to see. As David's words faltered, my father, usually reserved in his expressions, couldn't contain his disappointment. He asked me to pass him the phone and began to speak to David. "David," my father began, his voice laden with disappointment. "What you've done isn't just a betrayal of your brother, but a betrayal of this family. You slept with your brother's wife and continued the affair even after they were married. Your actions have severe consequences and have irreversibly shattered the trust we had in you. I raised both of you to value family, loyalty, and decency. What you've shown today defies everything I've tried to teach you." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink into David's conscience. "Your disregard for your brother's feelings and the lack of respect for his marriage are unacceptable. You've not only hurt him but also torn apart the bonds that hold our family together. Your mother and I are partly to blame for what you've become, but we will no longer tolerate this behavior. From today, you're cut off from the college funds I set up for you. You'll have to figure out how to pay your university fees on your own. I will also stop funding your lifestyle. Do you think it makes you more of a man to sleep with married women? Let's see how you manage without my money." Throughout this, I maintained a composed demeanor. Although I initially wanted to scream at David, watching my dad punish him was the ultimate vindication. I had exposed his true nature, and it was clear he had underestimated the consequences. My mother, despite David's persistent protests, continued to justify him, but my father swiftly ended the call, shutting down David's attempts to explain away his actions. Afterward, my mom approached me and hugged me. It had been a long time since we shared such a moment, but in that embrace, there was an unspoken understanding and support amid the family turmoil. She apologized for not believing me all this time. My 14-year-old self could never have imagined this moment, being vindicated and embraced by my mother. Following this, my dad helped me find a good lawyer to divorce Karen. She and her lawyer tried to fight dirty, asking for alimony since I earned more than her. But her affair played heavily in my favor. We also conducted a paternity test, and it was confirmed that David was indeed the father of the child. The news was incredibly painful, even worse than discovering Karen's infidelity. I was furious that the son I had loved and raised wasn't mine. However, I decided to stay strong. Karen begged me to continue visiting my son, arguing he shouldn't be punished for the situation, but I couldn't bear to see him. He reminded me too much of David, and I hated it. After my divorce was finalized, I felt a sense of freedom wash over me as I moved into my own bachelor pad. It felt surreal to live alone since I had married so young and never really had the chance to experience independence. However, my naturally independent nature allowed me to quickly adapt to my new lifestyle, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. 2 weeks ago, my dad called to tell me he was considering changing his will because he didn't want to leave anything to David. My dad is incredibly stubborn, and once he decided to cut David out of his life, he stuck to it. David tried reaching out to our parents and even showed up at their doorstep, begging for forgiveness, but they refused to let him in. Even my mother, who usually gave in to David's tantrums, seemed done with him, though it must have been hardest for her. David never texted me to apologize for what he had done, showing he didn't regret his actions. He was just upset about being cut off from our parents. Dad told me he planned to leave everything to me, ensuring David wouldn't contest it later. He would leave David only $1. My eyes widened in shock as my dad had worked hard his entire life. Including his assets, retirement fund, and life insurance, the total came to nearly $2 million. The only condition in his will was that if my dad passed away before my mom, she would continue living in their house, even though ownership would transfer to me. I didn't mind this, as I wanted to care for my mom in her final days. Somehow, David found out about this, and, unable to reach our parents, called me yesterday, trying to make amends. He explained how he was struggling with college and that after Karen discovered the paternity of the child, she had been pestering him for child support. He said he had no money and was looking for part-time jobs but couldn't find anything. He begged me to talk to our family to start fresh since he really needed my help. I laughed in his face and told him I was done with him. I reminded him that he should have thought about the consequences before sleeping with my wife and getting her pregnant. David argued that I was being unfair and that Karen was also to blame, to which I agreed. I reminded him that I had divorced her, making her his responsibility now. He shouldn't be calling me to complain about her or the child since these were the consequences of his own actions. David started to raise his voice, but I interrupted, reminding him that he was no longer the favored child in the family but the black sheep who had slept with his own brother's wife. At that moment, David began to cry, telling me how everyone, including our grandparents and relatives, had turned against him. While this was true, it was no longer my concern. I told him we were done and that he should never call me again since I no longer considered him my brother. Since then, I've replayed the conversation in my mind. Despite my hatred for my brother, I had never heard him cry, at least not since we were kids. I won't lie. It did hurt me a bit to see him so helpless. So, I guess I'm here to ask if I should talk to our parents about him or if I would be an asshole if I don't. Update 1. Hi everyone, many of you have been asking why I am no longer in contact with my son Henry, and some have even called me cruel. I need to explain that I am not comfortable raising another man's child. This isn't a stepson situation. I was led to believe Henry was my son, only to later discover he is actually my brother David's son. Naturally, this revelation hurt deeply, and I cried over it for days. The main reason I don't want any contact with Henry is that I no longer want Karen in my life. If I remain connected to her child, she will find a way to re-enter my life, and I need my space. You may think I'm cruel or selfish, but I can't see him ever again, at least not for a very long time. Update 2. Most of you correctly guessed that it was my mother who informed David about my dad changing his will, leading David to call me as a last resort to fix things. I confronted her in front of my dad, and she broke down, saying I had punished David enough and that he had learned his lesson. My dad firmly told my mother that if she believed what David did was forgivable, then he could no longer stay married to her because he could never forgive such a betrayal. This threat silenced my mother. My dad made it clear that if she ever talked with David again and we found out, she could pack her bags and leave. As I mentioned, my dad is very stubborn. Hopefully my mother will learn from her mistakes. Update 3. Reddit. It's been 5 months since my last update. My relationship with my parents has improved over the past few months. My dad and I go golfing every weekend, and he treats me more like a buddy than a son. Although my mother misses David, she has stayed away from him. The last I heard about David was from my cousin, who said David had been asking everyone for money, and eventually had to drop out of college because he couldn't afford the fees. He and Karen are living together, and he has a part-time job as a mechanic. Apparently they are raising Henry together, which is a good thing I guess. I never discuss David with my parents, and they don't bring him up either. For everyone asking, I am doing quite well. I was promoted at my job 2 months ago, so my salary has significantly improved. I haven't been dating anyone as I feel I still need time and space to heal. I've been going to therapy, so we'll see how that works out.
We annulled our engagement because my fiancé valued friendship more than love when I asked his best man to wear a tuxedo. I, 26, am getting married to Mark, 28, a handsome, responsible, intelligent man with a kind heart and a great sense of humor. My sister Jennifer, 23, is going to be his best man. Jennifer is best friends with my husband Mark, 26. He's known her more than twice as long as he's known me. We only really met and talked at any length about 3 years ago or so. They were co-workers together at her high school job, and she's been a part of his gaming group since then. They went to the same college, and they're co-workers again now working for his friend John's, 42, company. Mark was in college for the better part of a decade getting 2 undergraduate degrees and his PhD, and Jennifer ended up doing the same major as him, likely due to his encouragement. She's thinking about her master's in the same field, but they both work full-time now. In addition to being co-workers and playing Dungeons and Dragons together, they also game online, and they hang out all the time. They've gone to conventions together, either as part of a group, or just the two of them. They do local classes and events together, and Mark helps Jennifer with her photography and editing. While she has a solid full-time job she likes, Jennifer still has aspirations of being a model, influencer. She loves fashion, and she's also into cosplay. After we got engaged, we were at a family dinner, and I was talking to Mark about the wedding party, and I mentioned that even though I have 2 sisters, I wanted my own best friend Helen, 26, to be my maid of honor. Mark said that was great, because he actually wanted to ask Jennifer to be his best man. Jennifer immediately and enthusiastically agreed. Being a female best man is just the kind of thing she'd love. Obviously, even if that meant she wouldn't be one of my bridesmaids. She also knew that between our other sister and some of my friends I had too many people who needed to be bridesmaids, and Mark was worried about being short on groomsmen. This was all fine and well until later on when we were talking about what people were going to wear. I picked out my dream wedding dress, and I coordinated the bridesmaid dresses, and Mark was going to have his groomsmen, most of which were other gaming buddies in tuxedos. I had to talk him out of putting them in cosplay/Ren Fair stuff. However, Jennifer was going to wear a dress. Jennifer is a very tall, very attractive woman, and to be perfectly frank, she has a large chest. The dress that she wants to wear was designed by one of her friends online, and while it's not white or anything, it's mostly red and black and pretty well matches the other groomsmen, and it's formal and fancy. It definitely shows off her figure. I wouldn't say in a slutty way at all, but it just does. She would also, as the best woman, stand out from the other men on the groom's side, especially in the heels she wanted to wear with the dress. After dropping a few hints here and there and broaching the subject of each side of the wedding party matching in women's tuxedos, I gently requested that Mark have Jennifer wear a tuxedo rather than the dress and shoes she wanted and he had previously liked. When they gave me pushback, I pointed out to Jennifer that she might be too exposed, or she might distract people with such a flashy dress. Jennifer gave me a dirty look and said half under her breath, "Are you fucking serious?" And before I could react, she just said, "Fine, fuck it, you're the bride. I'll wear the fucking tuxedo." Mark sighed and half said some things about it being ridiculous, but then when I asked him what he said, he just said, "Okay, it's whatever, it's fine." Since then, Mark and Jennifer have been passive-aggressively making fun of my concerns, with them doing things like Mark comedy ogling her chest, or her making all sorts of boob jokes. She's done things like ostentatiously covering up her chest with her hands when she moves past people while saying things like, "Gotta guard the girls, wouldn't want to knock anyone over." Both her and Mark keep making fake Freudian slips about her chest or her figure, and Jennifer even pretends to lose her balance and fall over because her boobs were too heavy. They pretty much just do this when I'm around. They seem to think it's hilarious. They've made it very well known that Jen is really disappointed about not getting to wear the dress and that her seamstress friend is upset about it too, and Mark has seemed a bit distant and disinterested in wedding planning. I was looking over some tuxedos for women and making some suggestions to Jennifer about ones that aren't too tight in the chest or hips, and she just showed me the one that she had already picked out and said, "Is this fine, or did you want to further micromanage my specific tuxedo?" We started to get into a fight, and she accused me of being a bridezilla. When I told her she was being a bad sister, she said that she wasn't the one who was being body shamed and told what to wear. I told her my requests weren't body shaming, and she said that they were the same thing. My parents completely took Jennifer's side and said that I should just let her wear the dress. Obviously, she showed it to them too, and they thought it was beautiful. They like her friend too, and her friend has done clothing and costumes with her before. My father said that I should at least stop bothering her about the tuxedo if I'm going to make her wear one, and then I should just let her go with the one she picked. The one she wants though is very high visual impact and it is also very tailored. She said she can match it to the colors, but I feel like she'd still stand out. When I tried to get Mark to weigh in on this, he just said, "It's your wedding, do whatever you want." I guess I'll tell her to do whatever you want. And I obviously don't feel like he's very invested. I feel like he's not on the same page, but he just doesn't want to argue. He's always like that. Even though we both have good jobs, both Jennifer and I still live at home with our parents, because housing is ridiculous, and it's been awkward around each other. I've been staying over at Mark's a lot over the last year, and I was supposed to be officially moving in, but he's been kind of cool and passive about it recently. Everyone seems to be acting like I'm the asshole here. Even though Mark and Jennifer are the ones being passive-aggressive and unreasonable. I almost feel I should have just made Jennifer a bridesmaid right off the bat, or told Mark that it didn't make sense for him to have female groomsmen. Am I the asshole for wanting my husband's best man to just wear a normal tuxedo? Update 1, there is not going to be a wedding. John, 42, of all people, Mark's 28 boss and gaming buddy noticed my post, as it got way more attention than I ever expected. We've only ever met a couple of times and hardly ever talked before, but he reached out to me with, "This is John, LOL, call me." So I called him from the parking lot after work. John says he's been married for about 20 years, and he's tried to give Mark relationship advice. He doesn't think we're a good match. He told me that I should talk to Mark and that Mark has been unhappy with our relationship and extremely unhappy with the wedding planning, even to the point that it's a running gag amongst him and his friends. I got into it a bit with John, because to be fair to me, Mark's ideas have been ridiculous. Just some of the things he asked for, and which John, Jennifer, 23F, and his buddies thought would be cool. He wanted the wedding party to have custom swords, daggers and amulets. He wanted them to have the swords during the ceremony, and he thought people would like fantasy amulets. Mark had told me that John was willing to pay for the bridesmaid dresses if we had them done by Jennifer's costumer friend. I told him no, because I wanted normal, nice bridesmaids dresses from someplace reputable and that the bridesmaids could buy them themselves. John told me that he had offered this as a bit of a bet with Mark. Mark wanted to serve meat at the wedding. He said that his friend, John, could provide it and that he made meat in his basement and had tons of it. I obviously said no, because why would I want meat at my wedding? Never mind some guy's basement meat. John got a laugh out of this at the time, and talked to me, because he's a nerd who likes to laugh at his own jokes. Apparently, he's very proud of his basement mead, and they like to make toast with it. Basement mead has apparently become a running gag in their games, as John insisted on telling me. Frankly, John seemed kind of tickled with himself just because he was speaking with me. Mark wanted the band at the wedding to play classical covers of video game and superhero music. Mark wanted the reception to have a jester, who would wander around doing magic tricks and asking people riddles. Some lady that Mark and his friends know asked if she could be an elf at our wedding and wear her forest gown, and Mark said he'd ask me, and he described it as some kind of green Greek toga dress with leaves and elven writing on it, and that she'd have elf ears. It's a wedding, not a costume party, so I don't even know why he would ask that. I mentioned this stuff to John, and he recognized all of it and some more things to add besides, because Mark would always vent to them about the wedding plans, and John just agreed along, saying that I was constantly shooting down all of Mark's ideas. The point is that all of Mark's ideas were completely ridiculous, and that I wanted to have a wedding and not a Halloween party. John laughed when I brought this up to him and said that these ideas were awesome, and that I was just being too boring. John said that he thought we weren't a good match, and that he's told Mark that he needs to talk to me. I asked him if he thought Mark and Jennifer were a good match, and he just said yes. I asked if there had been anything between them, and he said no. He said he's 100% certain they've never hooked up, because Mark doesn't have the poker face for it, especially with as much as him and the other group members ribbed them over it. He said that Mark is too oblivious for his own good, and that the week after her 18th birthday, Jennifer said, pretty much straight to Mark, "I'm 18, so you can fuck me now." And Mark just laughed it off as a joke. It does sound like something she'd say, because Jennifer does love making inappropriate sexual jokes. John thought there was more to it though. They've had their characters date each other in games. He said they've been the very model of chastity since Mark has been dating me. Once at an event, Jennifer was supposed to kiss Mark, but instead she kissed the palm of her hand and then had him kiss her palm. John is fully confident that neither of them would cheat. I went over to Mark's house, because he hadn't called or texted in a while, and he basically confirmed everything John said. Mark said that I stressed him out when I was over, and he wasn't sure about me moving in because thinking about it gave him anxiety. He didn't like any of my ideas for our house. It was his childhood home, and he's resistant to changing anything. He just has his stuff everywhere and wherever. He kept trying to talk about giving me some rooms, or some space, when it's supposed to be our home where all of the space belongs to both of us. He was extremely frustrated about the wedding planning, and he felt like he didn't have a say. He said the dress Jennifer wanted to wear was just about the final straw, because I told him he could pick the outfits for the groomsmen, and I told him Jen could be in a dress as long as it matched. She really loves the dress, and she got it from her friend. She and John and apparently all of his buddies warned him that I'd find some way to have a problem with it. He says that I talk him in circles whenever he tries to choose or change anything, even though all of his suggestions are ridiculous. And he said he'd just about given up caring by the time I complained about the dress, so he didn't bother fighting about it. He said it upset him the way I was body-shaming Jennifer about her figure and her breasts. He thought I was being jealous and controlling, and that I had been a bridezilla ever since he proposed. When I asked him why he even proposed, if I apparently give him anxiety and he doesn't even want me to move in with him. He said he felt like he was pressured to either propose or break up, and he hoped things would get better and that he didn't know if he had a good enough reason to break up. When I told him that I never pressured him to propose, he said that all of my friends and family know that I consider it a goal to get married before I'm 30, and he brought up a document on his phone where he had taken notes about what kind of proposal I wanted from all the times I had talked about it. He said that he started the document because of how obviously important it was to me to have a perfect proposal and how often I talked about what I wanted. He proposed because he felt like he had to either marry me or dump me if I was going to have time for my plans. I don't think there's anything wrong with having a timeline for your life, and I wanted to start having kids by my late 20s or early 30s at the latest. I mentioned all of this to Mark again, and he said that that was fine for me, but that he was kind of on the fence about when to have kids. And he mentioned that Jennifer isn't sure about having kids at all and certainly isn't in any hurry about them, but I told him that doesn't have anything to do with anything and that Jennifer is just being short-sighted. I asked him if anything had happened between him and Jennifer, and he said no, and I believe him. I asked him why he wasn't dating Jennifer, and he said that at first she was too young, and then he was seeing someone, and then he was dating me, and he said that he values his friendship with her more than anything. He said that his friendship with Jennifer was worth not getting to be with her that way, and that she's too attractive to want to be with him. Apparently, the only reason Mark even started dating me is because he tried flirting with me at a family party we were at, and he said I seemed into him. He doesn't think of himself as handsome, but he is, and he's got his PhD, a great job, and his own house at 28. He's definitely a catch. He didn't agree, and he said he's only ever dated his high school prom date, a girl who was kind of his girlfriend until she graduated and left, and me. Mark apologized and said that he wanted to put a hold on any more wedding or moving plans, and that he wasn't sure about the relationship. I had already started crying, but then I broke down and he apologized again. He said he was sorry for messing up my plans, and that he kept hoping things would get better. I left as soon as I felt like I could drive. By the time I got home, Mark had already texted Jen, "Your sister is crying. Sorry," and the two of them had been on the phone the whole time. And of course my mom knew and she tried to comfort me, but I could just tell she wanted to say "I told you so," because she had been warning me I was going to drive Mark away, and she thought he was better with Jennifer too. Jennifer said that she tried really hard to have this work out, because she just wants Mark to be happy, and that she had tried inviting me to gaming, and for Christmas before last she bought me a Switch with games Mark likes, and that she was sorry stuff happened this way. She accused me of not really liking or caring about Mark and just wanting a generic husband. When I told her that wasn't fair, she mentioned the same stuff from the wedding planning and a bunch of other stuff from our relationship that she said made Mark feel ignored or suffocated. She said that the only reason I liked him was because he ticked boxes and always gave in and let me have my way. We started arguing, but our mom stepped in before we could get into it too bad. I asked Jennifer about what this meant for her and Mark, and she said he is absolutely her best friend and nothing is ever going to change that, and that she loves him. When I asked how she loves him, she just said that's not a discussion she wants to have right now. Our mom said everyone needed to cool off, and that was enough for Jen to step away and drop the subject. One of the commenters on my original post asked why I was marrying my sister's boyfriend, and my mom asked very nearly the same thing. She questioned how I had started dating Mark just about as soon as his age gap with Jennifer stopped being awkward, and she implied I shouldn't have been dating him in the first place. That's not fair at all. It's not like he's her property. And Jennifer can clearly just go get whatever man she wants. It's not like she had any kind of claim on a man just for knowing him. Even while she was trying to comfort me and saying that things will be all right, my mom wouldn't stop implying that I was wrong for going after Mark in the first place or criticizing me for how the relationship went. She said that Mark wasn't the man for me, and I could tell she meant that he belonged with someone like Jennifer, as if I'm not good enough or what I want doesn't matter. And then I caught her talking to Jen about how things should be fine and how she should try not to be mad at me as if I was the one in the wrong or I should be apologizing to her. Jennifer just kind of went on like normal and went ahead and went to go game with Mark and her friends the next day. I know they've been chatting online like normal. I gave Jennifer Mark's ring to give back to him, And then I had a missed call from him while I was in the shower and a text that said, "Okay, I guess we are broken up then. I'm sorry. I don't know if I messed this up or if everyone else were the assholes here. Sorry this was so long. A lot of stuff has come out. I feel like I'm definitely not going to get married by the time I'm 30. Related comments. Comment 1. Everyone in this situation is at fault, but I feel bad for OOP because her own mother accused her of stealing her sister's soulmate just because she accepted his invitation to date. The fiancé approached her first, so why is it wrong that she accepted? While it might be true that OOP wanted to meet certain goals and saw him as a way to achieve them, her boyfriend isn't her sister's property. He asked her out and then proposed. Why is she being villainized for thinking they were in a mutual relationship? Comment 2. Seriously, Mark is the biggest villain in this story. He essentially said, "I have a crush on this underage girl at work. I'm going to befriend her and then date her older sister because she's the closest approximation I can get." He told OP he loved her and wanted to spend their lives together when he proposed. But behind her back, he made fun of her with his friends, knowing he'd rather be with someone else. He wasted her time and used her plans to marry by 30 against her. Nobody in this situation is nice, but Mark caused most of the suffering. Comment 3. Everyone in this situation is exhausted. Both people in the relationship aren't compatible, and those around them aren't great either. It's truly one of those, everyone sucks here moments. After being married for nearly 35 years, I discovered that my husband had a side piece for 2 years. I was devastated and decided to divorce. I've been married almost 35 years, yes, to the same person. And while it hasn't been perfect, it's been alright. Kids, dog, white fence. I've got those. Our personal lives have suffered somewhat. I went from being a virgin on my wedding night to stepping out of my comfort zones to please him sexually. Household of 3. To where Saturday, it will be 6 years since we've been intimate at all. For the longest time, I thought he was having an emotional affair with his male friend, that he had fished with, but had become ill with cancer, because he would drop everything and anything for him, including plans we had, for him. Plus, there were a few texts that, while not sexual, were more than friendship. But for some reason, while I was hurt, I was not threatened. I know he is extremely ill, there is no physical relationship going on, his time is short, and once this was out of his system, he would be back to his normal self and me, his wife. I'm really sorry if my words sound crude, that's not how I want them to sound. But once he passed, my husband would be back to me. So I was gone this past week, dog sitting, house sitting for my sister, and got home last night to check the mail. There was a blank envelope with everything typed. Inside was a short note, picture above. I know who the female is, it's one of his friends. I'm completely devastated. To me, a woman is harder to compete with. What does she have do that I don't? I decided to get healthy and lose weight. I've lost over 130 pounds. I don't hear anything from him. I went to the doctor last week, dressed nicely, and he told me I was embarrassed, that his wife was running around town looking like a whore, with her tits hanging out. I had a slight off-the-shoulder white eyelet with dark jeans. Since finding this out, I've become obsessed with finding evidence. I stalk her Facebook, their call logs. He calls her an average of 68 times a day with calls lasting 15 minutes. I'll drive by her house. I'll type and delete her name, phone number, address, wanting to confront both of them, blame her, blame him. Wonder what she has that I don't, how I can fix this. Do I want to fix it, does he? What should I do? Where do I go? How? I've cried for 2 days now. I can't stand to look at him, and I'm afraid to talk to him. Update 1. So after a few days of crying and feeling miserable, I became obsessed with finding more information. Mind you, this all came to light last Sunday. Before that, I was walking around in an ignorant state of not knowing. So I started scanning phone logs, daily phone calls to and from her 6 to 7 plus times a day, 20-40 minutes each. I had a typo in my first post. I went through his office, nightstand, etc. I don't know exactly what I was looking for, but I was looking for something. I would drive by her house when he would leave. In other words, I was going crazy. And by Wednesday, I broke. I was tired of him acting like it's a normal day, that there was nothing going on. I could not take it anymore, and I first wanted to talk to her. So I took off in my car, drove to the dog park, empty. So I drove to her house, started pounding on her security door, and ringing her doorbell. She has a ring, telling her to open her effing door, and if you're woman enough to FK a married man, you should be woman enough to talk to his wife. This went on for maybe 10 minutes or so. She didn't answer. I texted my husband that we needed to talk and that, I know. My sister is on the phone with me trying to calm me down and get me to leave her place before the police are called. In the 3 minutes, yes, he picked someone in our community, it took me to get home. Not only had she called him, she also sent him the video. So I confronted him, somewhat. It was more like he gaslit me the entire time. He said, "Get your ass in the house, I can't believe you did something so effing stupid," etc. And turned it around on me. "You're always sitting on the couch unless your sister invites you out." And he didn't deny he was with her, "It's none of your business." When I asked if he would stop seeing her, he said he would not give her up. She is a good friend of his. And the biggest smack in my face, he wants me to apologize to her for embarrassing her in her neighborhood. And I guess she is talking about filing a restraining order against me. So Thursday and Friday, I finished my pity party, and Saturday, I started doing things I never thought I would have to do on my 35th anniversary. I reached out to divorce attorneys. They were closed but filled out the forms for consultations. I also started a resume and applied for jobs, but after not working for 20 plus years, what kind of work am I going to be qualified for? I stayed at my sister's this weekend. I needed the change of scenery between his attitude, the not happening anniversary, and the funky feeling I needed a break. Update 2, so it's been about a month since I found out about his affair. It still sucks. And I'd like to say I've totally gotten over him, but one doesn't turn off feelings like a light switch. At least I don't. And sometimes, I think, maybe we can fix this, but then he does something awful again, and I'm back on track with my plans and goals. So I've set goals for myself and have been working towards them. My first one, get a job. I was a housewife for 99% of my marriage. Not only did I get one, I found two that I can work at the same time. I opened a secret account, not in my name, and am stashing all my extra money in it. He controls all the house money tightly, so I have to get creative. He knows about one job, not the other one though. I've gone back to school to get my degree, geared towards what I'm doing. So far, it's going well. I'm remaining positive and pushing forward, even when he gets negative towards me. "You're just going to quit, you will flunk out," etc. I am saving for a small place, hopefully a little ADU or an apartment, that will allow my little dogs. Once the apartment is lined up, then I will file for divorce. I need to make sure I have a safe place to go because he will become nasty once served. So far, things are calm here. I don't ask about her, although they still speak daily, and I'm sure they are hanging out. In our community, it's like he is trying to rub my nose in it. The thing is, I'm not letting him know or see that it's bothering me at all, which in turn is bugging the crap out of him. So he threatened to take my phone away. Okay, fine, I went and bought a cheap burner phone, just in case he does. So now he has switched to being nice. He has bought parts for my car, paid the labor, bought my scrubs and equipment I need for work and school. He asked for a list and bought it. It's times when he's nice, I think there might be hope for us. But as long as she is in the picture, nope. Then he turns back into the ass again with empty threats, knocking down my confidence, and I'm back to counting months until I can move. Update 3. I'm still on my phone and just worked an overnight shift, so I'm tired. We are in the month of June, and quite a bit has transpired, some good, some not. I finally broke down and told my kids. Those were extremely difficult calls to make, and I told them everything. I took responsibility for my part and admitted I could have done things better. My kids, all older, said that while not perfect, I did my best with what I had, and that didn't excuse his cheating. My eldest wanted to come out and confront his dad and the other woman. I told him it wasn't worth it. My second son, the thinker, didn't say much but was deep in thought. My third son said, "It's about time, with the way he talked to you and treated you. I hope you're thinking about leaving." I was honestly on the fence. He would flip-flop between wanting to work on us and his actions saying differently. The past 2 weeks have been the worst. Since he has been using my son's car, my son put a tracking device in it. Yes, I have access to it, and no, he does not know about it. He would tell me he was going to one place and go straight to the other woman's house. If I asked where he was, he would lie to my face. I just kept notes until I couldn't anymore. Father's Day. I had worked the night before, got off work at 8 a.m., texted him what he wanted for dinner that night, stopped at the store, bought everything, came home, got it started, and tried to take a nap. Mind you, he did nothing whatsoever on Mother's Day. He woke me up to borrow $40 to go to a sporting goods store. I said fine and reminded him dinner was in an hour to an hour and a half. 2 hours later, he was not back. I checked the tracking. He went straight to her house and hadn't moved. So I did a drive-by. His car was parked in the garage, she was parked outside, so I came back home. I was more upset for my son. I texted him, "You need to come home, we need to talk. I know you're not at the sports store." Nothing. After 30 minutes, his car still had not moved, so I called her. Of course, she didn't answer. I left a voicemail. "I know my husband is at your house. You win, I'm done. It's obvious he wants to be with you. I'm tired of the lies, his bull. He doesn't want someone who has loved and fought for him for 35 years. I'm done. Come get his dog and his stuff. You've won." 10 minutes later, he came in with a Walmart bag and said he went to Walmart and a friend made tacos for him. I dished up servings for my son and me, then threw the rest of the meal in the trash. He gave me an attitude because she feels threatened now that I called her. She has to change her number and might lose clients. I didn't threaten her. I told him if he wasn't happy here, he knew where the door was and was welcome to use it. He was quiet all week but still a jerk, and his only concern was seeing that woman. I had melanoma removed and needed a driver, so he took me. When I got in the car, not one word, not "How are you? How did it go? Are you okay?" Nope, all he said was, "I'm hungry." And it was the 30th anniversary of losing my sister to melanoma, so I was extra sensitive. Little things were just adding up. He was forgetting things I needed or had asked for. I was at the bottom of his list. On our son's birthday, he couldn't even wait for him to blow out the candles before he went to her house. This last Sunday, he was going through the kitchen cabinets, pulling out some soup and said he was going to take it to a couple who had been stranded down the road for a couple of weeks in a broken-down RV. So I gathered a few more items, and he left the bag of stuff on the counter. I checked and yep, he went right to her house. This was it, my last bit of energy for this marriage. I texted him again. "I don't understand why you need to lie. There is no dog park, hiking trail, fishing spot, sporting goods store, broken-down RV, nor Walmart on Bunker Hill. Why not be honest and tell me you're going to her house? It's obvious, regardless of what you're saying, you don't want to work on our marriage. You have and are choosing her over your family." And I sent it. I tried to call him. He didn't answer, so I texted. "Didn't think you would answer." Not even 5 minutes later, he came screeching into the driveway, slamming into the house screaming, "What the F is wrong with you, you fing mother fing b." I'm sure if I was in the same room as him, he would have hit me. I told him I'm tired of him lying to me. Just tell me he's going to the whore's house. He's been going there the entire time and yet still lies about it. Doesn't he think if I'm questioning where he is I know? He called me a few choice names and ignored me the rest of the night. I'm sure my neighbors loved it. I went yesterday, Monday, to file for divorce and got bad news. Because he is a 1099 employee and hasn't technically worked in almost 2 years, although my bills are paid, I'm not in his bank accounts. I never have been. I've always had to ask for money from him. Because he stopped me from doing his taxes 3 years ago, saying they were too complicated for me. If I were to file for divorce right now and ask for alimony, he could immediately file to lower it, and the judge could agree with him. My lawyer suggested waiting 3 months to file, as he is now working again, started this week and submitted paper bids. I'm to collect as much evidence as I can in the meantime. The lawyer was impressed with what I had so far. So, I'm planning and playing it cool till September. Relevant comments. Comment 1, I know this hurts now, but you will be better off without someone draining your life. I don't know much about this, but I think you should get a second opinion from another lawyer. 1099 forms still count as proof of income. They might be able to subpoena those and his full tax records, even if he hasn't filed them. Reply, he owns his own business and gets a 1099 from the company he subcontracts through. I haven't seen a tax return in 3 years since we file separately. I try to look when he's not home, but his office is a mess. I'll keep searching because there must be something. OOP on why she needs alimony. My children are all grown, and I just started working again 2 months ago after spending most of our marriage as a housewife, taking care of him and our kids. My youngest son is 20 but has special needs and mentally is about 12. Earlier, when I found out about the affair, I would have done anything to get him back. Now, no, I don't want him back. I deserve better. OOP on securing legal documents. All those documents have been moved to a safe place since April. OOP explains why she is waiting until September for alimony. I've lasted this long and honestly, if I left now, I couldn't afford a decent place with my son, even with my job. After everything I've done, including caring for his mom, helping with his business and running the home, I deserve it. I just want what's fair to get a safe place for my son. According to the lawyer, it could mean the difference between $500 a month and $4,500 a month. These are rough figures, but it's a substantial difference. I have 2 weeks to escape my controlling and abusive husband before he returns from a business trip. Throwaway account as my husband and in-laws are following my main. I, 29F, have been married to my husband, 30M, who I'll call Alex. Alex and I met in college during our freshman year. We started off as just friends and got married 7 months ago. I've gotten along with his family, but we aren't super close, but we're friendly enough. The problem is that Alex has begun to make me incredibly uncomfortable. Firstly, he's begun to ask me who I'm meeting with, where, what we plan on doing, how long every single time I leave the house without him. At first I just thought he was being protective and a good partner just in case something happened. But then he started checking my phone after the visits, vetting and researching each of my friends as well. He also has been pursuing me to link my bank account to his, as he's in charge of the finances when he was perfectly fine with keeping them separate before. We fight about it almost every day. Finally, yesterday, when he was preparing to go on a work trip for 2 weeks in California, he demanded I wear a tracker so he could keep an eye on me while he's gone. I can't do this anymore. I feel like I'm suffocating, and his family, who I've spoken to about his worrying behavior, just said he's being careful and protective as a good husband should. I need to gather my things together and find a way to be gone before he gets home without tipping him off. He's always threatened that if he ever found me cheating on him, he'd turn in divorce papers the same day. He keeps a filled-out copy on his desk. I'm going to submit those the day I leave, but there's so much to do. Bergen, finding a new place to live, seeing if my job has any transfers available, packing and moving in 2 weeks. His return flight is on May 11th, so I need to move quickly. I'm posting here because I don't have any close family, and I can't risk dragging my friends into this as we share the same friends. I just needed a place to vent and ask if anyone has any advice on the easiest and safest way to do this. Edit. Oh my god, you guys are amazing. I never even thought to not use his divorce papers. I'll check for cameras before I start any packing or prepping. I may also shred his divorce papers just in case and look into getting a lawyer for myself. I'm in a no-fault divorce state, that much I remember, which will help. I'll update again when I know more. The tracker he wants me to use is a small clip to put on the belt or waistband. I'll wear it unless I'm going or doing something related to me leaving. No pets yet, thankfully. Update 1. So I've gotten a lot of support and helpful advice along with questions I thought I should clarify before I proceed with the update. Some asked why I'd be hiding things from Alex regarding going out and who I'm meeting with. I don't, and I have nothing to hide. However, when he begins to double-check everything I tell him with the other people there, right down to each person I talk to and what I said. Did I send any text messages? Did I order food? How much did I eat? That's when it started to feel like I was slowly being pushed into a corner. It didn't start that bad, but gradually grew worse over time. All of the Reddit subs my in-laws' families are part of are related gardening and DIY, so I highly doubt they'll see this. If so, by the time they do, I'll hopefully be gone. I talked about my job and explained things to my manager. And they promised to look into openings in other states to see if they could get me into one. They'll have an update on that in 3 days. I trust that my bank account is secured, considering he's tried to get into it before and failed. I found one camera in the kitchen, another in the living room, and one in our bedroom. As such, I've left them in place for now and done all other planning, either in the bathroom pretending I'm taking a bath. I'm honestly staying away from the domestic violence services as my sister-in-law is unfortunately higher up in those, considering she volunteers there, and I have a feeling if I did show up there, they would know in a heartbeat. I can't look for apartments until I get the update from my work, but either or I'm still gonna be leaving the state. The day before I do, I will be changing my number carrier and wiping my laptop and all of his electronics before I do. I've met with 2 lawyers so far and had them look over the paperwork. My husband had prepared and both said that it did have some clauses in it. That could have caused me some trouble down the line. What alarmed all of us was the fact that several of those clauses dealt with future children, and not as a hypothetical. Like several hair suggested, I have a feeling he fully intended on getting me pregnant to keep me trapped and tied to him. There are 3 other locations my job could send me to, and I have. As a precaution, I began looking into all 3 cities and housing in the areas. Just in case one of those, this is the one they send me to. Even if they don't have an opening that they can push me into, then I will just have to quit, move and figure things out on my own. I have enough money to live and survive for a few months until I can pick up another job. Unfortunately, all of our friends are mutuals and would likely be unaware of the consequences of saying or sharing anything I do or say with my husband. I don't have any surviving close family, and obviously my in-laws are not a good resource to rely on. I am on my own, unfortunately, other than the wonderful bonds I've begun to make here. I will update again if I get more information or something else happens. Otherwise all updates when my work gets back to me. I do plan on leaving before he returns though. Just to make sure that I'm not anywhere near here at that time. Update 2. Good news. My work has an opening I qualify for that will not only shift me across the country, but also comes with a salary increase as well. I've started telling my in-laws and friends that I'm planning a surprise outing for when my husband gets back for just the two of us. This way, people don't give me odd looks if they see me out and about. I've even gone as far as asking Mill to show me his favorite recipes. Meanwhile, I've found a moving company that while small is willing to work in a storm. The reason is in 5 days, we're supposed to get hit with a large storm front. I plan to shut off the breaker and say we lost power if he asks, just as several people here suggested, and even send him a short clip of the storm. I will have all of my stuff moved that afternoon, and I will be flying out once the weather has cleared enough to do so. I have a lawyer who will push my divorce through, and I've filled out the necessary paperwork so that I don't have to be here for it. I'm not suing for assets or alimony, and I've shredded his divorce papers as well. I've set up a cheap phone plan through Cricket until this is all said and done, at which point I will find a new carrier, number and phone. This one is being wiped and left behind. My laptop is provided by my work, and the IT department inspected it thoroughly and it was clean, thankfully. No other electronics aside from my laptop and new phone will be coming with me. If Alex needs to talk to me, he can do it through my lawyer. Not sure if anything else will happen. My fingers are crossed that he doesn't think anything's amiss until after I leave, and I'm not turning the breaker back on when I do. He can when he gets home. My work is covering the plane ticket, so that at least is one expense I don't have to finagle in. Update 3. It's been a busy week, but I've gotten so much done. Firstly, I am now out of the house and am currently in a hotel while I look for an apartment. It's a big city, bustling with people no matter where you look. We had a pretty bad storm system hit back home that actually lasted 2 days. High winds, thunder, lightning, and even hail everywhere. I didn't take much from the house: my documents, clothes, and important sentimental items. I left all of the furniture and electronics behind. I cleaned the house top to bottom and took pictures on my phone so he couldn't claim I damaged anything when I left. My lawyer has already started divorce proceedings, and my husband will be served on the 8th. His plane is due to land early in the morning, and the sheriff will be there at the house waiting for him. He is very much about public appearances and reputation. My lawyer will be calling him as well to inform him that I am more than willing to air out everything to the public about his actions if it means securing my freedom from him. I will go to court as long as I must to get this pushed through. I haven't told our friends or his in-laws yet. I will do that while he is on the flight to prevent him from getting wind of it before he's handed the divorce papers. I will be calling around and explaining why we're getting divorced, to try and prevent him from twisting this into somehow being my fault. I don't want him trying to claim I had an affair or something, so I want to get the truth out before he can twist this. I'm doing okay. I'm tired, but yet I feel almost jittery and off-kilter. I keep looking over my shoulder and monitoring what I say even when I don't really need to anymore. Hopefully that will fade soon. My work is covering the cost of the hotel, and I'm working on getting my other things in order. I also need to find a new GP as I want to get a full test just to make sure everything is okay. I don't know when my next update will be, probably when the divorce papers are filed or if we have to go to court to push them through. I will try to keep my head up, but it feels like I'm in a whirlwind or something with so many things to do and think about. I kinda thought it would be easier once I got out of the house, but while the fear is smaller, somehow the number of tasks only seems to have grown. Update 4. Firstly, I'm working on getting an apartment still and have applications in at 3 different places and will hopefully hear back from them soon. I'm still going into work here at the new location, so I don't have to worry about burning through my emergency savings completely. I've gotten a lot of emails from Alex, his family, and our old friend group asking question after question. I have only sent one return email to Alex, explaining that I don't believe we are truly compatible, and it is best we separate now. That his treatment of me when I'd done nothing to deserve as such was just as much of a deal breaker as cheating was for him. I ended the email with the statement that I would not be contacting him further and anything else he needed to pass on to me or vice versa would be done through my lawyer. For his family and friends, I just typed up one email outlining everything that had happened and why I left. I told them I wished them no ill will, but that such treatment of his wife and partner was not acceptable. That should Alex get remarried in the future, I wish they would help support both partners and not just Alex. Alex, from what my lawyer told me, was livid when he was served. The sheriff actually ended up booking him for assault on an officer and menacing due to the threats he was shouting. His father bailed him out in a few hours, But with the testimony of the sheriff, my lawyer believes I have a very good chance at getting a restraining order. Alex, upon returning to the house, apparently lost his temper again, breaking the dining table into pieces as well as the TV, and putting several holes in the walls. At least that's what one of the emails from one of our friends reported as Alex called him to help him clean up the mess. My lawyer already has pictures of the house I took, with timestamps as evidence nothing had been damaged by me. My friend reported that Alex tried to claim I'd been the one to trash the house, but the holes in the wall were at head height. Alex is 6'3", and I'm 5'4", so he knew that was false. Either way, taking the pictures definitely will help me, so again, thank you everyone here for the advice because I never would have thought of that on my own. My work won't share details of where I am, as I do work with some higher-end clientele who value security, and that information won't be gossiped about, and no, I'm not some stripper or escort. I deal with contracts, notary and business management. As such, even if Alex tried to use my work to find me, he wouldn't succeed. Update 5. It's been a little bit, and I thought I'd answer some questions before giving my update. It may be a while after this until things change. Firstly, no, I didn't bring my car. The public transport here is good enough to use without needing one. I have secured an apartment, and the building has good security. You need a keycard to enter, and there is a security guard at a desk right by the entrance to the building. As part of my contract, I gave them a photo of Alex and his family so that even in the off chance they do find me, they won't be let in. The responses I got from the emails varied. His family said I was overreacting, and that I owe Alex an apology for the problems this has caused him. The pending criminal charges puts him at risk of losing his job if he's convicted. Alex sent a long email, apologizing and pleading for me to come home. He said he was worried for me, that he is willing to go to therapy if it will appease me. He wants us to remain together, and he didn't think leaving was an appropriate response to his genuine concern and worry for my health and safety. The friends gave somewhat lacking replies, saying that they didn't think Alex was ever going to hurt me and that I shouldn't be letting my imagination run away wild. As much as I want to say I was surprised by the lack of support, I'm honestly not. He intends to fight the divorce. I am letting my lawyer handle it, and I am also pursuing a protective order as well. Once I got approved for my apartment, I also froze my credit. I've changed my phone carrier and number, as well as making sure none of my documents list Alex as next of kin or POA. Some have asked why I was so paranoid about Alex and his possible future actions. The answer for that actually is somewhat simple: my grandmother. I love that woman to bits. As a teen, she explained why my grandfather was never around. He was extremely abusive and manipulative, and her generation didn't allow divorce really. She wouldn't have been able to buy a house or get a good enough job to support her and my mother on her own. As such, she endured it, shielded my mom as she could until my grandfather died. When I felt like I may have been overreacting, I remembered how she'd said she'd always wished she'd been able to see grandfather for what he was early on when she may have been able to annul the marriage. I don't know when I'll update again, maybe when the divorce goes through or if something big happens, but until then, I'm just trying to keep my head above the water. Update 6. It's been a month since my previous update, and I wanted to share some of what's been going on in the meantime. The divorce is proceeding, but even though I don't need him to agree, and he's not, it means I have to go through the courts to get it approved. As such, it could be upwards of 6 months to push it through even though I'm filing without attempting to claim property, alimony or compensation. I just want a clean break and separation. Alex has attempted to use our friends to reach out to me, as he doesn't want to use my lawyer for communication. He's saying it's disrespectful and cowardly to hide behind my lawyer and not meet him face to face. Alex wrote me a letter that he did pass off to my lawyer, but the contents were him justifying his actions and claiming that in today's time it is dangerous for women to be on their own, which is why he was so intent on trying to keep me safe from harm. He wanted me to understand that he was trying to protect me as best he could and was hurt that I would just lie to him and hide my actions from him related to my dissatisfaction with our marriage and my moving. I didn't reply, because at no point did he apologize. All he did was turn everything around on me as I was being overly dramatic, emotional and cowardly. There was a second letter with Alex's from my cell. Her letter was honestly disturbing and completely justified my misgivings regarding approaching her in any kind of professional capacity. She spent 5 paragraphs detailing how Ariel's abusive relationship looked like and that Alex was the furthest thing from abusive. The details she included were all related to financial abuse and physical abuse, nothing like what Alex had been doing. She stated that my attempts to smear her brother's name for attention and clout made me the abuser, not him. I haven't really been able to process that, admittedly. Part of me can't help but wonder if she's right. I mean, I blindsided him by leaving as I did and am refusing to speak with him at all. My old boss recommended that I look into getting into therapy after I moved, and I think I need to. I've had a hard time adjusting to being on my own. I keep censoring myself and haven't even gone out to eat yet. I always end up worrying about what if someone sees me, what if I get in trouble for spending my money on something frivolous. My lawyer is continuing to fight for the divorce, and I shouldn't need to be physically present in court. Any meetings needed between me and the judge can be done via Zoom. I'm trying to avoid confrontation with Alex and his family for now as much as I can and pass both letters to my lawyer in case he needs them. Our friends are mostly trying to avoid taking sides still, and I'm honestly approaching the point of just letting them go as well. I'm tired of fighting for them to understand at this point. I don't know if anything is going to happen, so my next update may not be until around mid-November, depending on how long it takes to push the divorce through. Work is going well, and it's helpful to have something familiar to anchor my day-to-day life when so much has changed and is changing even now. I broke up with my girlfriend because she wanted to stay a virgin. Now she wants to get back together but had sex with someone else during our breakup. I, a 23-year-old male, met my ex-girlfriend, a 21-year-old female, 3 years ago. We lived on campus at university in different halls of residence. After a few months, we got together and for the most part had a very happy relationship. There was always one issue though. My ex grew up in a very religious home. Her father is a pastor. She has been open with her family that she does not share their faith. They weren't happy about it but accepted that she has to make her own choices on that. Nevertheless, I think some of that religious upbringing was still in her mind. I grew up in a different religion but was never very serious about it and am no longer religious. Our relationship was pretty normal except that she told me very early that she was a virgin and wanted to stay that way until she was married. It wasn't for religious reasons. As I mentioned, she isn't religious. But she was very focused on not disappointing her dad. We did other sexual things, just not intercourse. I never had much luck with girls growing up and going into the relationship I was a virgin. And I still am, at least if you classify being a virgin as never having had intercourse. Anyway, I was becoming more resentful of the fact that everyone I know was having normal sexual relationships and we weren't. I couldn't understand why she didn't want to have a full sexual relationship, though of course I never pressured her about it. I felt that while I was at university and pretty broke, getting married was something for the future. Last year, I was in my last year of university and she was working in her first professional job. Her degree was shorter than mine, so she finished university first despite being younger than me. She was talking a lot about all these successful guys she met at work, which did make me feel lesser as I was still a broke university student. Coupled with her still not wanting a full sexual relationship, it did make me feel more resentful. We had some arguments about it and after a while I felt that I should end the relationship as we wanted different things and our lives were on different paths. It was awful. She was crying a lot and I felt terrible afterwards. Anyway, it has been nearly 6 months since we broke up. We haven't been in touch at all for most of that time. I have not been involved with anyone else in that time, as I was 100% focused on finishing my degree. I have finally finished university and am about to start my first professional job. She recently got in touch again and asked to meet up. I was hesitant but decided we had so much good history that I should hear her out. She told me she's been missing me terribly these past 6 months. That she thinks she wants to get back together and is open to having a sexual relationship now. I asked her why now. What changed? And she looked uncomfortable. After a little prying, she said she had a short-term fling with one of the older guys at work while we were broken up. Which of course was fine as she wasn't my girlfriend anymore. Anyway, she said he persisted with her until she started having sex with him. She ended it with him recently. She was clear that it was consensual, but that the guy was very persistent with pursuing sex with her. I was gutted. I couldn't understand why she'd make me wait all those years, but was fine doing it with some new guy she'd only been seeing a short time. I asked if the reason she was open to having a sexual relationship now is because she wasn't a virgin anymore. She said yes. I asked her to give me some space to process all this. I'm conflicted and would love some advice on this. I have missed her a lot and still have strong feelings for her. But at the same time it feels like I was strung along for years. It's hard to put my finger on why I don't want to take her back. Everything logically makes sense for us to get back together. I'd even get to finally have a sexual relationship with her. But I feel awful about this whole thing and don't want to ignore those feelings. Some of the comments are being very harsh on my ex. And I guess that's not surprising. You don't know her. She's not some evil manipulative villain. At all. I would never have been with anyone like that. She's still the funny, smart, charming, beautiful girl I always knew. Any guy would be lucky to have her. I would be too if I could handle the baggage here, but I'm thinking I probably can't and a clean break is the way to go. Though she may regret the relationship with the other man, it's not my business as she was a single woman and we broke up. I wasn't ever expecting to hear from her again really. This whole situation is very surprising to me. I'm feeling hurt because I guess this is a solid blow to my ego. That I feel like the lesser man here. I can own that, and that's something for me to work on. Ultimately, I have some hang-ups about sex from this relationship that I need to deal with. A few people have suggested I could benefit from therapy. I'm going to look into that. I think I need help to process all these emotions from this situation. Relevant comments. I would ask her why she was willing to sleep with this guy after such a short relationship, but after 3 years she was not willing to sleep with you. OP's reply, I think this is the right question. Because I don't know why, she didn't say. All she said was that the guy was persistent. I'm torn about whether to simply text her that I don't want to rekindle things and leave it all in the past. Or whether I should ask more questions about what happened. Because this hurts. I don't know if I'm ready to get details of her relationship with the other guy. Sometimes I just feel like I'm stunted in some way. A few comments have said I'm immature and they're probably right. I know I'm the one who ended the relationship and that she's entitled to do what she wants with anyone else. Still doesn't make it hurt any less. And maybe it's just best to say goodbye and leave all this in the past. Update 1. Hello again. I appreciate people taking the time to comment on my last post. The response was a lot more than I expected with over 2,000 comments. I'm amazed so many people wanted to comment about my situation. Thank you. Warning, this post is long. I have kept a daily journal since I was 16. A lot of what follows is dumped from my journal. Yes, I know I'm not concise. I'm going to refer to my ex as Ellie, not her real name. I'd like to write a bit about the comments because so many people took the time to provide their thoughts and I appreciate that. The majority of comments were some variation of move on. A clean break. A strong recommendation with a lot to recommend it. A minority said give her a chance and see how it goes. Plenty calling me an arsehole for ending it because I wanted sex in our relationship, or for being obsessed with her virginity. That I dumped her because she wouldn't put out. And quite a few saying my breaking up with her made her feel like sex is necessary to keep a guy and that it drove her heartbroken into the next guy's bed. There were a few she's pregnant comments. Not that I know of, it's not impossible, but if that happens it won't be anything to do with me. The dude's saying I should fuck her and leave her, or worse, seriously some of you guys need a hug or a psychologist. No, I would never use her like that, no matter our past. Ellie and I were a loving couple for years. That counts for something even after we broke up. Feeling hurt doesn't justify using her, or anyone else for that matter. As for comments that I have some hang up about taking her virginity. My issue when together was that we weren't having sex in our relationship, not whether she was a virgin or not. Her being a virgin was her reason for being abstinent, but wasn't directly an issue either way to me. If she hadn't been a virgin and wanted to be abstinent I would have been in the same situation. Bear in mind, for 3 years Ellie had everything she wanted from our relationship. Boyfriend, love, affection, loyalty, support, and a guy who respected her wishes to be abstinent. While she got 100% of what she wanted, for me there was a big element missing. And there was no way to reconcile that. Either we were having sex or not having it. Sex requires both to say yes and that wasn't going to happen. With hindsight, I should have ended the relationship early on, when Ellie first told me she wanted to not have sex until marriage. When we got together I was a naive 19-year-old who had never had a girlfriend before, so I kind of went along with things because I really liked her and got along with her so well. I fell in love with her and then kind of felt stuck in a relationship that wasn't what I wanted. I've learned from this and won't make that mistake in the future. I want to make active, not passive choices in future relationships. To not just go along with things because that's what the other person wants. Our views about sex in our relationship were not compatible, so I ended the relationship rather than waiting any longer hoping she'd change her mind. It was scary to take that step and I put it off for way too long, because I didn't want to hurt her. But I couldn't stay in the relationship just for her. I had to also consider myself too. My mistake was waiting so long to get to that point. I regret that as it caused her more hurt than if I'd ended it early on. Many of you say that sex just isn't that important. But for me it is, at least as part of a relationship. You can disagree. That's fine. Some people are fine being in no-sex relationships. No judgment from me, but that's not what I want. Some people took issue with me saying I felt she strung me along. On reflection, that's fair. Ellie was clear to me about wanting to not have sex until marriage. I foolishly stayed way too long hoping she'd change her mind one day. She didn't. That was my mistake. I strung myself along really. She never led me on in any way. It hurt to learn that she had sex with the next guy relatively quickly after I waited so long. But she is my ex, so that is not my business anymore. She is allowed to change her mind. She can have sex, or not, with whoever she chooses. I don't get a say in that. My hurt is an emotional response, not a logical one. Logically, I see she did nothing wrong by me. I'll get over it. It's just my bruised ego if I'm honest with myself. Feeling I'm somehow a lesser man because she took that step with the next guy. I know objectively that isn't true, but I sure feel it. I was not a perfect boyfriend and I have made mistakes. I have learned from them. I don't regret breaking up with Ellie and still think it was the right decision for me. Enough background. A few things have happened. Last weekend was the Australia Day long weekend. I was on a camping trip, in the Grampians for any Aussies reading. It was so nice to be in nature, to do some bushwalks with friends and decompress. It felt good to talk about the Ellie situation with my mates around the campfire. Most of them knew Ellie pretty well from our years together and they had a range of views, just like the commenters on my post. And I got the usual good-natured shit about still being a virgin. I learned there's an expensive bottle of scotch they bought a while ago that's going to have its seal cracked when mine is. Bastards LOL. One great question a friend asked was whether I would have ever decided to reach out and take Ellie back if she never reached out to me first. The answer is no. It was so obvious to me. That cut through a lot of the confusion for me. I was being too passive in this situation, and needed to do what I wanted. Not just react to what Ellie wanted. By the time I was on the way home, I had decided to not get back together with her. But that was moot. When I was driving home and got a mobile signal again, no mobile network where we had camped, the network delivered a bunch of messages from Ellie all at once. She said she was wrong to ask me to get back together and that she's back with Tim now. She also texted that the thing with Tim is more serious than she told me when she last met with me. She apologized for misleading me about her and Tim's relationship. If you remember, she called it a fling before. She asked if we could meet to talk about it. I was not happy, so I just texted back no. Not very mature of me, but I wasn't in the mood to hear more about all this. And I was surprised and pissed off that she lied to me. That seemed very out of character for her. She tried calling me, but I didn't want to answer. She sent another text saying, "Tim and I had a fight. I shouldn't have come to you. And finally, I'm sorry. When I got home I was an idiot and let my curiosity get the better of me. I looked up Tim online. His real given name is uncommon, so it wasn't hard to find. Found him on LinkedIn, which gave me his full name. Ellie is one of his connections and he works at the same firm, so I was confident it's him. He's a director at their firm, one level below partner. He also has pics on Insta. Lots of posts about his adventures around the world at various events and exotic places, as well as shots with an expensive-looking car. A few photos of him with Ellie with their arms around each other in Singapore in November. I guess that confirms it was serious. He wouldn't have public pics with her for a casual fling. All that just made me feel bad. No good comes from comparing myself to my ex-successful boyfriend. Ellie is not my girlfriend and I'm not in competition with Tim. So I won't do that again. My ego's bruised enough already. I have been living a very frugal life my whole time at university, aka poor as fuck, so I know I can feel inferior when I see people with wealth. That's another problem for me, problem to sort out. Anyway, all that was on Sunday evening. On Tuesday evening, Ellie knocked at my door. She said that she knew I didn't want to talk to her, but she felt bad about everything and hoped I would let her explain herself, clear the air, then I'd never see her again if that's what I wanted. I let her in. I was not happy with recent events but figured I might at least get a clearer idea of what's going on. It was a long, heavy conversation over 4 hours, but here's the gist as I remember it. When we broke up she was devastated. She said it took a couple of months before she started to feel a bit better. She missed me constantly and wanted to see me the whole time, but when I ended it we agreed to keep apart and heal. In September, she met Tim at work. He manages a different team, she doesn't work for him. She said he was very charming and attractive and showed almost immediate interest in her. They got to know each other and he asked her out. She was worried it was a rebound but felt so much better getting his attention that she went along with it. After dating for a while she developed feelings for him and that later led to a sexual relationship. It wasn't a fling and she dated him for a while beforehand. I asked about whether he had pressured her into sex, last time said he was very persistent. She said she was trying to not upset me. She thought if she gave the impression she was reluctant to have sex with Tim that I wouldn't think as badly of her. So it was a story to try and spare my feelings. I told her it just made me worried she had been assaulted. She looked shocked at that and said no way. She was actually the one who initiated their sexual relationship. I said although I don't like that she lied to me, I can understand why. I don't think she did anything wrong changing her mind about abstinence. Yes, I was hurt when she told me she was having sex, but I have no right to judge her for anything. She's a single adult and it's her life. I don't think badly of her. She burst into tears and said something like, "I thought you must hate me now." I assured her that I didn't. She said she was sad it didn't work for us, but that she never would have dropped her virginity commitment if we had not broken up. After we broke up, she decided that it was a commitment she made to her dad when she was still a kid and it was messing with the life she wants now. So by the time she and Tim got into their relationship, she had already decided she was ready for sex with the right person. I asked about her dad and she just said he doesn't need to know. I asked about why she asked to get back together. Tim is older, she told me he's 32, and has been at the firm 10 years. One day at work, one of the women made a snarky comment to Ellie about being another one of Tim's girls. She did some digging and it turns out Tim has a history. He has dated a long list of women from work, several of them were young graduate employees just like Ellie. The rumor around the office is that Ellie is just the next girl to get used by him. She was horrified. She accused him of using her. They argued and she told him it was over. Soon after that she came to me. She felt as if we might be able to rekindle things now that she was open to a sexual relationship. But my hesitation and time to calm down made her realize that was a mistake. Over the weekend, Tim asked her to work things out. She decided to give it a chance. She tried to call me but they went to voicemail. I was camping, so she sent those messages instead. So I guess that's settled. I don't want her back and she's in a relationship so she doesn't want me back either. We chatted a bit about how our families are going. She congratulated me on finally finishing university. She asked if I'd been seeing anyone and when I told her I'd been studying hard and working a lot since exams, retail job, with no time for girls, she laughed and said I'm still a big nerd. She hoped we could be friendly if we ever see each other. But she wants to keep out of contact out of respect for her relationship with Tim. She wants to give it a real chance of working. Which is fair enough. She gave me a hug, said thank you for understanding and left. So there you have it. Ellie involved me in her relationship drama. I would have preferred she hadn't, but at least it's sorted now. I'm glad I paid attention to my feelings and took time out to consider things, as it could have been very messy if I had taken her back. Trusting my gut has been the biggest lesson for me in all this. I still care for her despite recent events. It seems like she is dealing with a lot of complicated things between her new relationship and work gossip. I wish her well and hope she will be happy, whether it's with Tim or not. She was my first love and I expect I'll always have warm memories of her. But I am clear now that I don't want her back. She is my past and I want to look forward. Well, this has become an essay. Tutors at university always told me I was too waffly in my writing. Well, fuck those guys, I'm not a student anymore. I can now focus on launching my new career with no distractions. I've worked so hard for so long to get here. My new job starts on Monday. It's going to be so great building actual real experience in my new profession, not just endless theory. I'll be earning much better money, no more student poverty. And I've got graduation in May to look forward to as well. I'm open to finding someone new, but that is way down my priority list. I'm not going to actively pursue that anytime soon. OP on Ellie changing. I came to terms with our relationship months ago. When she came back to me, it stirred up some old feelings, because we'd been a couple so long. But thinking about it now, that was more of an echo of those memories than real feelings. All of this drama was Ellie's doing. I would have preferred she never involved me so I could have been blissfully ignorant of her romantic life. I'd prefer to not know about her worldly, rich boyfriend. Or their sex life. She's definitely changed. The Ellie I remember was scrupulous and honest to a fault. The Ellie I have dealt with recently wasn't like that so much. I think that's why her lying to me pissed me off so much. It wasn't just lying. It was how out of character it seemed. But people change. She's in the business world now, and people there live by different standards to the religious family she grew up in. Anyway, I have cut myself out of her life. So anything that happens with her is hers to deal with. If she comes back to me, I'll remind her we agreed to stay apart and leave it there. I am not looking for another relationship right now. So no Tinder for me. And no, I am not looking for casual sex either. I'm a virgin, but I want a meaningful connection, not just sex. As I said in the post, I'm open to something if the right woman came along. But I'm not actively seeking it. That might change after a while, but right now I want to keep focused on my new career. OP on having closure. A lot of the comments here act like that final meeting was all for her benefit. Sure, she got some kind of relief or closure out of it, but it was also good for me. Seeing who she is becoming just made is 100% no doubt in my mind that we wouldn't ever make sense. She has changed a lot in the last year, starting when we were still together and she had started her job. Random phrases like, work hard, play hard, being generally less kind and more dismissive of others. Clearly she was being influenced by those around her, but it was her choice to take on those behaviors. I love the old Ellie, but I'm not sure I even like the current one much. Anyway, I didn't feel like she intruded. I felt like I got a nice neat ending to the whole thing and can get on with my life with a clear conscience. But we're clear now that it's over forever and I have her promise that she will stay out of contact. If she ever does try to come back, I can remind her of her own promise and close the door. Update 2. If you recall from my previous posts, my ex Ellie and I mutually agreed to be no contact after some drama on her part. At the urging of Redditors, I also blocked her to help maintain no contact. I've been working since February as a graduate engineer and it's been everything I hoped it would be. I'm meeting amazing smart people, learning so much every day, and am finally earning a salary after years of being a broke student. Having a little money in the bank and being able to afford to do things like eating out is such a nice change. When I finished university in November, I moved in with my brother temporarily. He'd just broken up with his ex and needed help with his rent. That's where I was living when Ellie last came to see me. He found a new housemate, and since his place was on the wrong side of the CBD for my job, I moved into a shared house in the southeast of Melbourne. The place is a bit run down, but the rent is reasonable, by insane Melbourne standards, and there are lots of pubs, bars and restaurants nearby. The location and my housemates have been great. I'm seeing someone. I'll call her Olivia, not her real name. She's the sister of one of my housemates. We met when my housemates and I had a BBQ and she dropped by. We got talking and were still talking hours later until everyone else had left. Her brother told us to STFU so he could get some sleep, haha. I asked her out that week and we've been close since. My housemate, her brother, has been making fun of us ever since, including more than a few crude jokes when she stays over. We agreed to be exclusive 6 weeks ago, so it's still quite new. She's so cool, and smart, and gorgeous. The chemistry was instant and intense from the moment we met. We just clicked so well. It's such a great time when we're together. Olivia is an accountant at a big firm. One of Olivia's workmates was having a party last month. She asked me to come to meet some of her work friends. We went inside and Olivia introduced me to the woman who hosted the party, her workmate Jess. There would have been maybe 40, 50 people there. I didn't know anyone but Olivia. At one point I offered to grab more drinks. The kitchen was in a separate room. As I was getting them, a guy asked me to pass him a beer from the fridge. I introduced myself and he said, "Hi, I'm Tim." We chatted a couple of minutes about our jobs and how we know Jess. Then I just said nice to meet you and returned to the group. I didn't recognize his face as I'd never met him before, but it was definitely Ellie's Tim, his job and firm lineup. And he looked in his 30s, a bit older than most people at the party. Neither of us mentioned Ellie when we were talking. Later on I asked Jess how she knew Tim. She said she used to work at the same firm as Tim, also where Ellie works, but she moved to another employer, where Olivia works. Despite living in a city of 5 million, it's still a small world. On the tram ride home I must have been quiet because Olivia asked what was on my mind. I said that the Tim guy at the party was, or maybe still is, my ex's boyfriend. I said I didn't think he knew who I was, or if he did, he didn't say anything. That prompted me to share some history about me and Ellie. Olivia was wide-eyed and said, "You never told me you were a virgin." Then she laughed and said, "Well, we took care of that." She asked if I had any feelings for Ellie and I truthfully said no. I dealt with all that months ago. More recently, there was a formal charity dinner that Olivia was asked to support. Her employer was a sponsor of the event. She was keen to show me off. We were at a table with a bunch of her work colleagues. Nice people. One of her work friends was so excited to meet me, and Olivia can't stop talking about you. That made me feel really good. After dinner a few of us were chatting and I got a tap on the shoulder. I turned around and to my surprise it was Ellie. Tim was with her. It was so weird to see her again. Tim said he remembered meeting me at that party but never made the connection to Ellie until just now. She must have told him about me. Ellie looked very different. She had lost a lot of weight and was very slim. The tight red dress she was wearing made that obvious. Her dad would not approve. Not that she was ever overweight, but I'd never seen her that thin before. She was immaculately made up with what looked to my ignorant eye like expensive jewelry. She'd changed her hair too, now blonde instead of her natural auburn. She looked like a sleek rich girl, not the poor pastor's daughter I remember. Don't get me wrong, she looked amazing, but she looked like a different person. I know it was a formal event so we were all dressed nicely, but this was a major transformation. Despite her glam looks, when I saw her I didn't feel anything for her. Just, nothing. Ellie said she was so glad to see me and she had some news, holding out her hand to show a diamond engagement ring. I know nothing about diamonds but it looked pretty big and expensive to me. I offered my congratulations to them both. Just then Olivia walked back over. I introduced her to Ellie and Tim. Olivia put her arm around me and Ellie's smile seemed to kind of freeze. I didn't really know what else to say, so I just said nice to see you again and wished them all the best for the wedding. Tim walked off and Ellie just sort of stood there a moment. It was awkward. Later on as we were leaving, Ellie was staring at us as we walked out. Olivia said later that, I think she still has a thing for you. I said it doesn't matter. Anyway, cut to a few days ago. My brother messaged me saying Ellie stopped by looking for me. Yes, Reddit, you were right. He knew to not share my new address with her, so all he said was I'd moved out. Next day I received an email from an address I hadn't seen before. It was Ellie. No acknowledgement that she was breaking our agreement to be no contact. No mention she stopped by my old place. It said, it was so great to see you again. I've missed you, and, that girl you were with is pretty, how serious is it? And telling me she and Tim have big plans for their wedding next year and she hopes I can come. I was annoyed because she is trying to make her life my business. Again. Despite promising no contact. Even going to the trouble to make a new email address to get around me blocking her. I showed Olivia the email and she rolled her eyes and asked me to think about why my ex would send me that. Why indeed? Olivia is great at cutting through bullshit and reads people way better than I do. Ellie can't have me back. I'm in a relationship now plus she's engaged, and it's not like I would go to their wedding. Who goes to their ex's wedding? It wouldn't be right. I don't know why she's trying to contact me, but I can guess that she wants to use me for emotional support again. Or maybe things are rocky with Tim, who knows? Whatever she wants, it's not happening. She has family and friends, she can talk to them. I deleted the email and blocked the address without replying. Ellie promised she'd keep out of contact and just couldn't help herself. I still intend to keep my word of no contact, even if she doesn't. I've also set up a filter to send any email containing her name to the bin. Olivia and I had a talk after that. I asked if she was concerned about the Ellie thing but she said no, she's not worried, she didn't get serial killer vibes from Ellie. I'm glad none of this has put her off me. So nothing too dramatic but it does prove you guys were right, Ellie couldn't not contact me despite promising to do so. I was able to sidestep her much more easily than last time. Ultimately this is a good news story. Life is so great right now. I've got a cool new girlfriend, a fun place to live and a new career I love. It has been easy to leave Ellie behind. How should I address a team member who feels dissatisfied after accidentally discovering information about other people's salaries in the organization? I work at a mid-sized industry S-corp in as a controller, and after 2 years of toiling with the owner, finally convinced him to hire some staff for the finance department. Currently have a finance manager, junior accountant and bookkeeper in my team, all of which do an amazing job considering the circumstances we're expected to meet. The CEO is a massive senile idiot, who undervalues the finance department and thinks we're all a waste. He complains the department is too large, when he expects us to not only work on the main parent company, but also his 3 subsidiaries, one of which is in SA and a major headache to balance each month. Our bookkeeper, 25F, only has an associate in accounting per her agreed contract to educate herself as she works. She's extremely driven, catches a lot of finer details, and is a studious worker. It's also a bonus she's always willing to put on more work, and wants to learn from everyone. However, while grabbing stuff from the main workhorse printer, she saw HR's payroll timesheet and saw everyone's salary. I've been trying to convince the CEO during this year's review to raise her salary from $50K to $60K, as well as maybe get her a title promotion to accounting assistant. She's genuinely a huge asset to our day-to-day life, but the CEO refuses to acknowledge her merits. I keep telling her I'm desperately trying to boost her wage, but I can see her getting depressed. The worst part is she's not confident she can compete in the job market right now until she at least has her BSA. Any advice on how to coach her? I genuinely feel sorry for her and think she's a tremendous worker. Edit. We're a fairly profitable company, but the CEO refuses to reinvest into the businesses. So we have more than enough room to raise her and honestly quite a few others' salaries, But he's a moron set on the mindset that the finance department is useless. Edit 2. Thanks everyone for the advice and being a place to bounce thoughts off of. I'll try to make an update post next week since I had the meeting with HR and our upper management about it. Relevant comments. Commenter. Just be her reference. Help her get out of this shithole by hyping her up to other employers. I'm sure at your position you may have some connections. OP, that's the hard part. I keep encouraging her and giving her positive affirmation that she'll succeed no matter where she applies herself, especially within accounting since she has a great niche for it, particularly in the tax prep side. But she's very soft, and I'm not saying that in a negative light. It took me well over a year to break her out of her shell and actually apply herself, and speak up. I've told her if she truly wishes to leave, I'll vouch as a reference and also see if I can set her up with opportunities. But she won't bite. She's that genuinely rattled that she's, her own words, not going to make it in her current educational status. Commenter, then she needs to be encouraged to get her education. Allow her to study at work during downtimes, push for tuition reimbursement if that's not already being offered, be flexible with her hours so that she can attend classes. It doesn't make sense that she's asking for more money where she is if she doesn't think she can get more money somewhere else. You push for raises based on your marketability and you're prepared to walk out if they can't get you up to market, not because someone with a degree and credentials that you don't have is making more than you. That's not how it works. OP, full reimbursement as long as she gets an A. It's how she got her associates by taking the fundamental courses at a local college while working. However, some of the more advanced classes she can't take all at once, so she's now back to 1 or 2 classes a semester. The current route is almost 2-3 years until she's near her BSA. It's how I managed to convince the CEO to hire her. Her employment contract lists she needs to be actively furthering her education. Otherwise, she's liable for termination. Commenter, I second their reference. If you can't win the fight, time for you all to jump ship. You're probably underpaid too. OP, I am $14,500 underpaid the market average in PA. Considering I'm basically doing work for 4 companies, severely underpaid. But I don't mind it as much since I'm closer to home, actually get OT pay here, prior to my previous job at B4, and WLB is worth the pay dip. However, I may jump ship within the next year if the CEO continues down this route. Commenter, you should fire the HR staff who printed everyone's salary and left it at the printer. Then use those savings in payroll to give the bookkeeper a raise if she deserves it as you suggest. OP, I had a meeting with the HR staff about 2 hours ago. They kept writing it off as an honest mistake and apologized to the bookkeeper for the situation. I'm also setting up a meeting between the CEO, CFO, myself and HR to discuss the impact of this situation, and how fucking reckless them using the main printer. Commenter, what is your goal here? Doesn't sound very productive. There's idiots in every company. OP, one of the many hats I wear is also adjusting company policies, for all departments, for whatever the reason. The CEO wants the controller to do it, so I just do it. So while the premise of the meeting itself doesn't sound too productive, it's still a good way for me to have the CEO acknowledge what went down. Like I said, he's borderline senile and needs these sort of meetings to know what happened. Also, if the bookkeeper decides to leave, I need to have the assurance that the CEO knows the reason why specifically. Not that she left because she sucked at the job, or some other nonsense HR will probably tell the CEO, but that what caused the initial reason is due to HR's lack of compliance to their own conducts. That way, if I need to find a replacement, which I will because we're honestly overworked, the CEO can't give me shit for needing another person. Commenter, just a general question that has been floating in my head since we accountants have pretty good access to financials within the company we work for, but wouldn't the bookkeeper have access to everyone's salary anyways? OP, I think that varies on separation of duties. Traditionally, bookkeepers often can issue payroll if HR doesn't handle it. However, in my company our bookkeeper only sees the total per pay period, not at an individual level, as myself and HR fill out timesheets and process payroll, due to CEO's weird confidentially paranoia. So she may have had an assumed figure in her head seeing our total monthly payroll expense, but never knew how much everyone made. I think what got her is seeing a certain employee's figure, because they are notoriously a shit worker but get paid a lot due to the CEO's racial bias. Update 1. So last Friday, I had a meeting with the CEO, CFO, HR, and myself to address the idiot HR manager using the main copier to print payroll timesheets. The meeting itself went awry, with my focal initiative being centered on addressing lack of compliance to policy and leak of confidential payroll details, leading to immediate consequences of disgruntled employees. Apparently not just my bookkeeper saw it, but a few others as well. So the HR manager profusely apologized and the CEO basically kept excusing her lack of discipline. The CFO and I already laid out a game plan prior to the meeting, so we discussed how the bookkeeper is disgruntled and it's beginning to affect her commitment here, highlighting that she's a valuable asset and human resource to the finance department and company overall. The CEO asked what my proposed solution was and I brought that with this year's review for 2023, we gave her a title promotion to staff accountant, junior accountant. This would then give more validity to raising her salary from $50,000 to $60,000 to match market rate in PA, on the MINE range, and help retain her dedication and excite her requirement to gain advanced education, BSA and beyond. This is where shit hit the fan. The HR manager says that's not a reasonable proposal and tries to convince the CEO to basically shut this whole meeting down. The CEO, being senile and already having a negative opinion on the finance department, was easily getting swayed and kept asking for the CFO's opinion. The CFO, being a massive kiss-ass, tried to play both sides because he's aware that he can't afford to anger the CEO or myself, since I basically do all of his work anyways. The HR manager then pulls an extremely childish, borderline insulting move. If she's so valuable, why not forego part of your own bonus for the 2023 review and give it to her? Here's the thing. I'm very fortunate to be considered a valuable member of this company, and my annual salary and bonuses are pretty high, even though I'm still below market average. For controller, I also receive an incentive pay for working on the CEO's other 3 subsidiaries, which could cover the $10,000 raise that I'm proposing for my bookkeeper. As I am also underpaid, I also work my butt off for those bonuses and incentives, and unsure if that's 1, even legal, and 2, a viable way to sustain a staff's pay. HR basically just told me to pay my own team's salary, which I'm still pretty aghast they would recommend such action. I didn't provide an answer yet, and luckily the meeting concluded since the CEO had a prior engagement to attend to. My bookkeeper is still at the company, but it's pretty obvious her confidence and vibrant energy is gone. I haven't told her about the details of the meeting, but I can tell she's anticipating an update. Genuinely, she's a great worker and I would love to keep her at the company, so I can continue working with her and developing her accounting career. This is my first time encountering a situation like this in management, so I'm unsure what the move is here. If anyone can provide some advice, that would be greatly appreciated. Relevant comments. Commenter, I want to know what the consequences were for her HR employed. Should have been written up at a minimum. OP, the other HR staff, who I personally think should be the manager instead as he's more objective and stoic, has told me little tidbits here and there. Basically, the HR manager just got written up in a small yelling at. It was basically the equivalent to a slap on the wrist. Other than that, God, who knows? She seemed pretty satisfied with herself walking out of that meeting. Commenter. I'd leave a place like this so fast. Your boss can't wholeheartedly have your back in a situation where you have a clear, reasonable answer to. Peace out. OP, CFO has told me on the side he's willing to increase my bonus this year to basically brush this aside. Trust me, I'm genuinely contemplating it. Commenter. This is all kinds of wrong. You're combining 2 different issues into one. Issue 1, data breach. Issue 2, disgruntled employee and review of finance team structure. Issue 1 isn't really your direct concern. Head of HR and CEO to discuss. Data controller 2 if you have one. Complain that your direct reports are disgruntled at the misconduct and leave it at that. Issue 2 isn't any of HR's concern. CFO structures the finance team as they see fit. CEO signs off any changes to budget and headcount, if needed. I wouldn't give any credence to the HR manager's bonus comment. It shows their immaturity and others will notice. OP, I'll try to provide more details that I maybe should have included in the original post. Issue 1 is my problem because for some reason, the CEO made policy and procedure the controller's job, instead of like most other companies where either HR or COO handles it. So for some reason, it's fallen on my lap to make sure every department is compliant to their own manuals and overall company manuals. Issue 2 is also a problem I have to address with HR involved, as for some reason the CEO drags HR into the employee reviews. It used to be just CEO and department managers to review with their team's performances, allowing said team members to sit in if they requested it. However, a year after I started, the CEO has incorporated HR into it for some reason, and now weighs their honest impartial opinions on the matter. It's driving me nuts even typing this. Commenter. So wait, the HR has a seat at the table regarding their opinion, but doesn't have the responsibility over policy and procedure execution or even following it. So is HR just in this company just the payroll department but for some reason gets treated like an executive OP, Spot on. Our HR department is just basically there to listen to employees complain, do bi-weekly payroll, and basically fulfill executive assistant duties. They don't even do their own recruiting or screening. We literally have to expense anywhere between $30K, $80K to hire a recruiting firm every time we want to hire new staff. Commenter: this is a clown company. You bluntly said your leadership is a mix of kiss-ass, senile, and incompetent. What are you still doing there? OP: protecting my team's interests. After I know they're taken care of, then I'll make my decision to dip. I feel like what I'm saying is green and too hopeful, but I at least want to keep my responsibility to them and do as much as I can for them before I leave. Commenter: leave and take everyone worth half a shit with you. OP: I have joked in the past with my finance manager, junior accountant and bookkeeper that I'll kidnap them and start our own firm. Maybe it's time to force that joke into reality, lol. Update 2. I'd first like to say thanks to everyone in this sub for their genuine comments regarding the matter. I've worked in accounting for roughly 6-7 years thus far, but only 2-3 in a management controller position. This situation overall, and the feedback from multiple people, has honestly been an essential learning experience, so thank you. The CEO, CFO and I had a final meeting while working on Saturday. We sometimes work Sats with the OT pay, only until 11 a.m. so WH workers can catch up on orders. Basically, the CEO said he can't do $10K in a title promotion for someone who doesn't even have their BSA. CFO and I argued back saying she's more than qualified in accounting experience, and that I personally gauge her around the same level as a staff accountant. The CEO, pretty disgruntled, said he wouldn't do it and that a $4,000 raise was all he could do for her. And then he went with HR's retort and said, if she has that much potential, then me, can pay her that bonus. While I do think this is an overall win, I had a feeling my bookkeeper wouldn't be very happy with an 8% raise. Many people have voiced that my bookkeeper may be asking too much, but as her manager I truly do value her discipline, work ethic and development thus far. So on the drive home, I steeled myself to basically cut $6,000 of my bonus and provide it on top, so she can earn that $10K raise. Fast forward to today, I had a meeting with my bookkeeper in the morning and told her about the results of the review. She was definitely not happy, and grew even more disgruntled at the fact that I was giving her part of my bonus. Maybe I'm still too green, but I wanted to be honest with her. I was hoping that if I tell her that I'm willing to pay part of her bonus, she would feel that even if the company doesn't value her, that I still do. I guess it had the inverse effect on her, as she started crying and thought herself as even more of a burden. I told her that if she needed, she could take as much time as she wanted to think about the offer, and no matter her choice I'll support her. About 20 minutes after the meeting, she asked if we could have a follow-up meeting. Moment we get in, she bursts into tears again. She starts profusely apologizing for not meeting standards, that she felt like a burden, that she caused me so much trouble arguing with HR and CEO, and that she was formally quitting as of today. I tried to tell her that I do not blame her, nor think she is unqualified, because I meant it, to try and calm her down. I tried to diffuse the situation the best I could, by telling her I'm not giving up on her review and that I'm still pushing etc. But nada. She left as of about 20 minutes ago writing this post. Last thing she asked me was if I could help her update, revise her CV and if I could get in contact with my network connections, to which I told her of fucking course. I'm writing this on my early lunch break because I'm fucking shattered. I know I can only provide her some connections and maybe a great recommendation letter, but I genuinely feel like I let her down. This is a crushing defeat for me, and I'm pretty exhausted trying to cope with it as it's my first time in management dealing with this. I couldn't do it, guys, and it's the worst fucking gut feeling I've ever experienced in a long time. Relevant comments. Commenter: what else do you need to see to convince you that they don't give a fuck about you or anyone else? OP: may be seen as a stupid reason, but after today I feel like I need to really step up for my other two team members, junior, accountant and finance manager. Even if I leave, I want to at least secure them good reviews, or set up some sort of a safety net in my absence. Especially because now I know the CFO won't do jack squat for my team. The finance manager has more years than me, and the only reason he's below me is because he never decided to further his education. He's got a great head on his shoulders, and I imagine he can easily take up my position. Junior accountant is still learning, but he's a great guy. Same with the bookkeeper, hardworking, amazing work ethic, and strives to continue learning. So I'd like to at least secure him a promotion before I leave. Our company does reviews per employee very, very slowly. Commenter: that sucks. Sounds like you didn't fail anyone here. The leadership put you in a no-win position, and in doing so revealed how much they value you, your team, and your function as part of the business. The real question is, what is your next move? OP. I've never stared at my CV this long in my life. I'm contemplating leaving, but going to first entertain the idea by looking at job postings in the tri-state. And I appreciate the kind words, but this was a great learning opportunity for me. Albeit in hindsight, I'm extremely bitter about losing such a talented staff member. Commenter, open feedback. As a manager, you shouldn't have told that much. Being a manager is not simply being transparent to those around you, but more being transparent while filtering the noise, reformulating bad news. It's also about putting things into perspective, especially for new, young hires. You could have presented the 4K raise for the bookkeeper as a win with an incentive to have them get their degree. Here's already 4K and we can discuss compensation further once you get your degree. If you really insisted on getting her 10K while axing your own bonus, you should have never told her where it comes from. In essence, you guilt-tripped her. There was no reason to give her the full explanation in that case. From my perspective, you were too empathetic with your employee. Remember, they had already gotten a hefty raise after only a year or two within the company, and I remind everyone here they're only 25, are yet to have a degree, and then you get her another 8% while her title or education hasn't evolved. You should have put things into perspective and rationalized the situation. Instead, you've pressured your employee into rethinking their career choice and feeling guilty about getting a raise since you explicitly told her it comes at your cost. OP, I appreciate the feedback. I guess I did begin taking a more subjective stance on the situation, as I tend to pride myself in trying to be a good team manager. That's entirely fair criticism, and I can now see the value of how a white lie may have prevented me from guilt-tripping her. I intended it to be more of a "fuck the company, you're great to me" message, but I think I read her stance wrong. Thanks for the drill down, this is honestly great. Commenter, man OP, it sounds like the most crushing thing is the fact that she still feels like a burden and that you feel like you couldn't get across that no, she's not a burden, as evidenced by your willingness to give your own money to her to keep her around because you do value her so much. Am I pegging that right? Anyways, where are you located? I just started as an associate at a small public firm that's always looking for new staff, and in my limited 3 weeks LOL experience, they treat us right. I can refer her to the firm and see how it shakes out. OP, yeah, it's getting to me on a personal level even thinking about it. I plan on reaching out to her to have lunch or dinner at least once before she lands herself in a new gig. Entirely selfish, but I need to know she understands I never saw her as a burden, only a positive asset. She's smart, so she'll figure it out herself, but I want to make sure this incident doesn't permanently dent her ego. Commenter, do you have feelings for her? OP, haha, I can see why it may be taken that way. But I can soundly say I do not. This isn't a slight to her, as I think she's great both as a team member and as a person, but I'm already infatuated with my current SO. I just personally dislike it when people pour their heart out, and that's not reciprocated properly. As her ex-manager, I still feel like it's my responsibility to ensure her some closure on that front. Commenter, please update us with the CEO's reaction. Do they realize they might be losing you as well? OP, I'll try to make another post if I ever make a decision. I don't want to seem like I'm milking this situation for karma or something. The CFO at least knows I'm extremely pissed at this outcome, but the CEO probably doesn't even care or know. Update 3. I wasn't planning on making this post, but well over 200 plus people, thanks for flooding my inbox, were asking for any major updates if they happen, so just sharing for people's peace of mind I guess. Just a minor update on both the bookkeepers, and my own, statuses post-whole HR debacle. Thanks to everyone for the guidance, and words of encouragement to bolster my steps. Bookkeeper and I had lunch on Wednesday last week to discuss her future plans. She's still pretty beat down by the situation, but guess she hasn't been dragging her feet since she asked me for a recommendation letter, plus to be a reference for a couple gigs. She still plans on furthering her education, whether or not an opportunity arises, so at least she's still encouraged to continue her accounting career. On Saturday, I got a text from her saying she was able to land a gig at a small, family-owned firm as a staff accountant near Delaware. Starting wage is $58K, 4% match, and a bunch of other benefits, so she got herself into a very good opportunity. I told her that as long as she applies herself the same way she did her previous experience, she'll do great and wished her the best of luck. She still plans on continuing communication, sort of as a mentor-mentee relationship, and I told her I'd be glad to. As for myself, I finished reviews for my remaining team members and quit as of last Friday. I wanted to make sure my team was well taken care of, so that my exit wouldn't leave too much of a gap in work for them. Managed to get my junior accountant promoted to accountant plus a 10% raise, so pretty glad I got to do one thing right there. To no one's surprise, the CEO and CFO were blindsided and tried to retain me in a panic on Friday when I was packing my stuff. Pretty much forced me into a meeting, offered me $24K, 8 more days of PTO, and let me WFH on Fridays, even though that's not really a perk for me. As much as I would have loved to have lived everyone's quitting fantasy here, I just simply left it as this summarized. If they truly valued me, as well the efforts I've made to improve this company, they would have listened to me at the start instead of scrambling like idiots last second. I left, and then the CFO sent me one massive text, not even a call. Basically begging me to come back LOL. I just ghosted him because he's pretty useless in terms of connections. I have no plans to job search at the moment and may be thinking about enjoying a couple weeks to myself before I continue my career. I have notified some of my connections that I'm free and already being headhunted, so I'm fairly confident I can enter a gig when I need to. Pretty grateful for that, honestly. Been enjoying my Monday thus far at home, finally catching up on the boys and 3-body problem. I personally think this is a win-win for both the bookkeeper and myself, but thank you everyone for the advice. I've also been curious about other fields in accounting. I've done PA at B4, worked at local firms, and an industry, S-Corp gig. So if anyone has any recommendations to explore, I'd be down to explore them too. Relevant comment. The HR manager sent me 4 emails regarding updated offers. I know in the post I mentioned only the final offer they gave me, but it was originally much lower LOL. First offer was just a $8K bonus on top of my current bonus LOL, which is not much. Second and third offers were minor add-ons. So they were still cheaping out on me until the very end. As for any personal reactions, nada. Guess the HR manager is too egoistic to admit they've screwed the pooch on this one. I told my finance manager to keep me posted if the HR manager gets any reprimand from this, haha. We've been married for 6 years. While pregnant with our third, I discovered my husband had been having a 4-month affair with my best friend. OP and her husband had been together since she was 19 and he was 22. Married for 6 years now with 2 kids, third baby on the way. She found out her dad has cancer. Her mother passed away when she was 12. OP's husband has been very supportive from day one and suggested that she step away from her job for a while to take care of her family. OP has her best friend who she knew since they were babies. Both families grew up together. After going to wake her husband up, she discovered her friend's text messages to him from his phone. Realizing it has been going on for 4 months that OP's husband and her best friend have been lying to her. She tries to figure out what to do next that she knows now about the affair. Update 1. OP spent a good amount of time gathering and documenting everything she has on her husband and her best friend. Used her dad's hospice care plan as a front cover so her husband doesn't know she knew. She is thinking about going back to work, but working with a lawyer first to get things in order should she move forward with the next steps of her life. Per her lawyer, OP doesn't have to worry about her inheritance from her parents, which her husband cannot touch. While her husband was at work, OP revealed what took place between her husband and best friends to their mothers, who are now upset about the whole incident. Met with the lawyer, OP gets her finances, logistics, and everything in order to make sure she is in a good position to go after her husband and best friend. Update 2. OP provides a quick summary on how things went so quickly in the last couple posts. She was able to meet with her OBGYN on the same day to get checked, all clear. Several more tests were done and waiting for the results to arrive. OP met with her lawyer to go over everything, including her husband's financial records that she got a hold of, to make sure her bases are covered. If everything goes well with what she got, OP should not have any problems with getting the divorce papers within a month. Angie and Ruth, MIL and ex-BFF's mothers, told OP what happened after both sets of parents confronted Tyler, ex, and Jess, ex-best friend. All 4 are very upset with both for the affair. Tyler and Jess have been cut off from their families. Tyler discovers OP has moved her stuff and their children's stuff to her dad's to get away. He went to look for OP, but she wasn't there. She left for her dad's cabin with her kids, now away and safe. Tyler gets arrested after trying to break into OP's dad's house, not cabin. OP had to get a therapy session in order to talk things out from her end and will set up therapy sessions for her children as needed. Per her lawyer, OP is now collecting all text messages from Jess, who told her to fix everything, especially her parents cutting her off. Blamed OP for stealing Tyler from her. Tyler has begged to reconcile, but OP isn't giving in. He doesn't know about the divorce papers yet until he would be served with them. OP suspected Tyler and Jess won't be staying together since their parents have confronted them. Jess's brother, Jake, is on leave from the military. He is stepping in to help OP and her family per Angie and Bob. OP thanks the Redditors for the continuing support as she deals with the whole situation on Tyler and Jess. Update 3. Tyler finds OP's post and asked if she is serving him the divorce papers. OP said yes. He begs for forgiveness for his behaviors toward her. OP makes regular meetings with her lawyer to make sure she has everything as needed to make things smooth. Jake is doing great, being a great support system for OP and her children. OP's dad is not doing well, now in the hospital for a while. Kids are adjusting well along with therapy already set up to cope with the unexpected events in their lives after moving away from Tyler. Still pregnant for a couple more months. Update 4. OP's dad has died. Her marriage ended in dissolution after Tyler found out about being served with the papers. Per her lawyer, the dissolution process was quickly and smoothly after Tyler gave OP everything she asked for in the prior divorce papers. OP has full custody of the kids with visitations for Tyler. Therapy is going on for OP and her kids. Still pregnant, but the baby is doing well. OP's ex-MIL, Ruth, and ex-BFF's mom, Angie, are helping her with the kids. All three women are on great terms with each other. Jake has gone back to his active duties but will be back to help OP and her family. Their friendship is going great and might be moving on to the next step, but Jake and OP are taking things slowly. Tyler and Jess are no longer together. He has left Jess, who has been blacklisted from her family after the blow-up. Update 5. Mill and Angie are taking turns spending the night and days with me for the first 6 weeks until we get acclimated. I told them they didn't have to, but they insisted. Honestly, I'm grateful for it. I can feel the waves of PPD trying to drag me under and my mental health really hasn't been doing so well. Don't worry, my therapist knows and we're working through it. Knowing that this baby never gets to know and feel the love of my dad has really been hurting, and the fact that this is the only grandbaby he didn't get to meet. I miss him like crazy and wish he was still here. Jake was planning on staying in for another 2 years to retire, but they offered him early retirement. Not because of anything going on with me or this whole situation. There was a situation at work. He didn't do anything wrong, lol. So within the next 6 months he'll be moving back home. He's going to try house hunting and find a place before he comes home, but since he isn't allowed to take any leave during this time to view places since he has to work on his exit stuff, there's a chance he'll be temporarily living with me until he finds a place. No, he isn't moving in permanently, lol. He might even just get an apartment for a year and then buy a house. There's also some drama with Tyler already because he's pissed I wouldn't let him in the room when I had a baby. So if you want any more updates on that front, I'll provide when I'm not overwhelmed. Love you all, thank you all for being my ear when I need to vent and get everything off my chest. I hope all of your days are wonderful today and everything goes your way. Update 6. So if you read any of my previous comments, you know that baby boy is here. He's honestly been the calmest newborn that I've ever managed. Hardly cries, is very content and happy all the time. He's been reaching all of his milestone markers, even hitting the ones that aren't on the premier scale. It's been such a relief and a blessing. The older two completely adore him and are of course eating up the extra attention they get from their grandparents. Yes, Angie and her husband are called grandma and grandpa as well. When I went into labor, I had told Tyler that I was in labor, but I didn't want him at the hospital. It is his kid, so I was being courteous. He blew up on me for taking away his right to see his child be brought into the world. I simply turned off my phone to relax and de-stress. He actually showed up at the hospital and had to be escorted off the property by security. Not for being violent or anything, he just wouldn't leave after I'd told the nurses. I delivered at the hospital I work at. I'm an RN. I didn't want him around. After that, he hasn't been to a single visit to see the kids. I initially sent him pictures of the baby and updates, but he never responded and eventually blocked my number. After roughly a month, I asked my FIL to reach out to him since no one had heard from him. My FIL actually showed up at Tyler's house to do a well check since I was concerned something was wrong. Even though I don't love him anymore, there is a piece of me that will always care for him as the father of my children. Turns out he has a new girlfriend and just isn't interested in being a dad anymore. He actually even denied paternity even though he's the only person I've ever been with physically. The kids are honestly and surprisingly okay with him not really being around. No, I didn't feel it necessary to tell them the harsh things he said. Jake has been completely amazing. He had my favorite food delivered to me at the hospital post-birth. FaceTiming me and texting me regularly. Chatting it up with the kids. Hasn't been pushy on me at all. Has let me set the pace completely. Hasn't crossed any of my boundaries in the slightest. He actually booked me a surprise postnatal massage and arranged all of it, including childcare. It was the most relaxed I've felt in months. He sends little gifts and food to the house occasionally, especially on my hard days. Jake has truly been a breath of fresh air. He comes home in just over 3 months and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't excited. As for me, I've still been regularly attending therapy. It's really helped me cope and just in general become a better person and mother. I'm still devastated by my dad's passing and grief really loves to put a chokehold on me when I least expect it. Sometimes I just go sit in his office where it smells the most like him and cry. I was very blessed to have such a loving and amazing dad. Angie and Emil have truly been angels on earth. I cannot express how beyond lucky I am to have this amazing support system. Even Phil, Angie's husband, have been insanely supportive and kind. I would be lost without their unconditional love and support. As crazy as it sounds, I'm honestly unbothered by the divorce and Tyler not being around anymore. I think I'm more relieved than anything. My heart aches for my children, but IDK. I don't think I truly realized how long I was holding my breath and walking on eggshells in that marriage until I was in a space where I didn't have to anymore. My therapist and I really dug deep and took off the rose-colored glasses. In a weird yet awful way, I'm almost thankful I caught him cheating. I think that's why I was so calm and methodical during the leaving phase. I go back to work next week. I think I'm ready to find my new normal and get back into a routine. While my heart aches my dad isn't around to see it, I'm ready to unlock this next chapter of my life. Cheers to the chapter of healing, self-love, new beginnings, and finding peace within the chaos. Thank you for going through this journey with me, supporting me, sharing your stories with me, and just being here. Love you all, internet friends. I hope you have an amazing day. I'll update again when I can. Update 7. I come bearing some much anticipated news, but I'm going to breeze over a few things other people wanted to know before we get into the Jake update. A lot of people are wondering if Tyler is still to this day not seeing the kids. He isn't. He no longer responds to his dad, who was trying to be the middleman so he didn't have to communicate with me. He told his dad that his girlfriend made him choose and he's choosing her because I wouldn't go through her to communicate with him. Mind you, I don't even know who she is. I don't even know her first name. That's how much I don't know about her. I told him if he wanted to use a third party to communicate with the kids, I would be completely okay with that, but not someone who is a stranger to me or the kids. We could use his aunt, who has remained neutral during the divorce and all of this. It wasn't good enough for him or her, I guess, so he decided to cut all contact. He didn't see the kids for Christmas or New Year. Shortly after the New Year is when he went full no contact. I'm managing the kids and working full-time as best as I can. I'm so grateful for all of the help I have. My Mil and Angie take turns watching the kids while I work, as they're both retired. More often than not, I come home to a clean house, happy kids, and dinner on the stove. They truly are the biggest blessings. I'm giving a huge shout out to the single parents who do this completely on their own with no help from outsiders or the other parent, because I cannot fathom how much strength you've had to muster to do it alone. I've had quite a few people ask me if I'm religious. The answer is yes. I am a religious person, however. I will not now, nor ever judge anyone for who they are. Yes, that includes the girls, gays, and they. The people who were born in the wrong body. No one should ever be able to tell you who you are or who you love is wrong. I support and love everyone in all walks of life. You matter. Your religion or non-religion matters, even if it's not the same one I follow. Hell, I have friends who practice witchcraft and I love that they're so passionate about it and it makes them happy. I absolutely love that for them. The people who are taking away women's rights or rights of the LGBT community in the name of religion make me absolutely disgusted. I feel like I needed that disclaimer to be added because I don't want anyone to rope me into that category. I will also not be entertaining any religious debates. Argue with your mother, not me. Finally, on to Jake. We're dating currently. I use the air quotes because we've been going on dates and spending time together but aren't officially boyfriend and girlfriend, if that makes sense. He kissed me for the first time at midnight on New Year's. Cheesy? Yes. Did I still love it? Absolutely. I'm not ready to offer anything more right now. We have the occasional date night out, but a lot of our dates include things with the kids like movie nights, going to the park, spending time at the house playing with them. The kids adore him and he adores them right back. I have quite a few pictures of him holding the baby, trying to soothe him to sleep, and he winds up accidentally napping with the baby, lol. He's allowing me to completely set the pace. He's patient with me at all times. I honestly feel so lucky. I told Jake if he wanted to date other people he could, and he looked at me like I had slapped him and was adamant I would be the only woman he'd pursue. Sometimes I feel guilty that he's healing a heart he didn't break, but he never hesitates to remind me that he's in this completely and will wait forever if he has to. I waited so long to share this because I wanted his stamp of approval to continue to share what is quickly evolving into our love story. I allowed him to read my posts and everyone's comments. He might have gotten a little bit of a big head with how much everyone is Team Jake. He pokes fun at me for it and I love it honestly. This man is so funny without ever being mean. He even said, "It's a breath of relief to know your internet family approves of me." He did create a Reddit account to look at my posts with my approval. He'll likely mostly be a silent follower, but don't be surprised if he pops up in the comments occasionally. LOL. Update 8. Can you believe that in less than 2 weeks it's been a year since I made my first post on Reddit the morning I discovered my ex-husband's affair? I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who has supported me on this journey. Y'all have been such a blessing. Whether it's for advice, kind words, or just a listening ear. I am so lucky to have developed my own little community here on Reddit. Now on to some updates. The Jake update will be at the end of the post if you want to skip to read that first. I know y'all are feral for it. LOL. First things first, I meant to update sooner, but if you saw Jake's comment you know I was locked out of my account. Well, someone changed the password to my Reddit account and then the email to it as well. You'll never guess who it was. If you guessed Tyler you'd be wrong. It was Jess. Let's rewind about a month ago. I'm cooking dinner for Jake and the kids while Jake is playing in my backyard with the kids. My front door opens and I figured it was one of my in-laws. They don't usually drop by unexpectedly, but Angie and Emil totally forgot the fake name I assigned to her. Both have a key to my house since they help me out so much. It's just easier that way. Imagine my surprise when I'm chopping up carrots to see Jess waltz into my kitchen. I simply pointed the knife at the door and told her to get the hell out of my house before I called the cops and pressed charges for breaking and entering and trespassing. I wasn't concerned with how she got into my house. I keep my doors locked 24/7. Call it paranoia if you will. I just wanted her out and would figure the rest out later. She started screaming bloody murder and was calling me psycho for threatening her with a knife. Jake heard the screams and rushed inside. His immediate response was to restrain Jess because he thought she was hurting me even though there was a solid 10 to 15 feet between us. He dragged her out of the house and told her to leave. She was screaming that she would ruin my life and all she was coming over to do was ask for forgiveness. Well, she called the cops on us and made up this elaborate story about how we lured her to my house to set her up, how I tried to stab her, and Jake was punching her repeatedly. She had zero proof and I have cameras hitting every angle of the outside of my house and in all of the main rooms in the inside of my house. Naturally, I just pulled up the footage and showed the cops and they left, taking her with them. Jake has spent the night at my house every night since then. Since then she has hacked into every single last one of my social media accounts, including Reddit. She posted some truly awful and hateful things on my Facebook and Instagram. I'm thankful she didn't manage to post anything on Reddit before I got it back. She spammed my job. I'm a nurse at our local hospital, with complaints and some truly awful fabricated stories about me. After a week of suspension to investigate, I was welcomed back after everything I told my boss and my boss's boss, HR, and everyone else above me proved to be true. I filed for a restraining order against her and my children when she tried to pick up my oldest from her school without anyone's knowledge. Thankfully, I already had a talk with the school about this and gave them a strict, only these people can pick up my child, everyone else you send away, call the cops, or whatever you need to do. When Tyler got violent in front of the kids a while back, and they escorted her off school grounds and kept her very close by for pickup until they saw me. Right now I got an emergency order approved but will have to go to court for a more permanent one within the next month. So I will let you know how that goes. She must have had a key from when we were growing up together or something because Angie and her husband have not spoken to her, nor has she had access to them or their home. I got the locks changed immediately. The Tyler update is that there is none. He still hasn't reached out to see his kids, hasn't asked about them. He's been a ghost. We were eating dinner with Jake about a week ago when my oldest quietly said she wished Jake was her dad, and that her real dad never played with them and was really mean when I wasn't home or looking. Which really just confirmed my fears. They were too accepting of him being gone and now I know why. I did learn through the grapevine, Mil and Phil, that he is already remarried and has another kid on the way. Mil told me they got a baby shower and wedding invite in the mail. Honestly, I feel bad for the new wife. The kids are truly just wonderful. Still in therapy, but the therapist has nothing but positive things to say after their sessions now. She did mention that my oldest brought up calling Jake dad, but I'll be honest, I'm not sure if I'm ready for that. Jake has made it clear that once, yes he said once, not if, but once, we're married he fully intends to adopt the kids, but that is another conversation for another day, haha. I don't want to deter her from having a bond with him, but it still feels too soon, you know. My middle child seems to have forgotten Tyler completely and is my usual ray of sunshine. I've seriously never met a happier kid. The baby is babbling away, smiling and laughing now. Can y'all believe it? I'm truly blessed with such wonderful kids. Jake. Well, Jake is Jake. You know how that goes. Haha. No, seriously. I have never felt such happiness before. He was genuinely concerned at how many people were commenting asking if we were still together and told me you better update right now and tell them we're still together. I wish you guys could hear just how funny he truly is. I officially allowed him to give me the title of girlfriend, though he says I've been his girlfriend practically this whole time, haha. He has been sleeping over essentially every night. He says it's under the guise of being worried Jess might show back up, but secretly I think it's because he hates being away from the kids. Whenever he's at work or anywhere that isn't my house, he will text whoever is with the kids asking for picture updates of them and expresses how much he misses them. It's actually really sweet. He's been allowing me to set the pace still, just also helping give me a nudge when I need it. He's attended a few of my therapy sessions with me to help get a better understanding of what I need from him in terms of this relationship. Jake is honestly just everything I could have asked for. I'm lucky to love him. Update 9. I'm making this one quick and easy since it's the first break I've had from life and a busy schedule in weeks. I had my restraining order court date. If you're confused, read my last update. And while I didn't get approved for a permanent restraining order, I did obtain a 7-year one. Apparently in my state it's really hard to get a permanent restraining order unless I have tangible proof it's life or death. Everything I had on Jess wasn't enough for permanent. However, I am still content with this outcome. If she happens to still be a bother during or after the 7-year RO, I can take her back to court / have her arrested. With that being said, I think I'm letting the talks questions about Jess die here. I love relating to every aspect of my life. However, I don't want her to try to use anything I say about her, even if it's under a false name and protected identity, to say that I've been breaking the RO. Jake, the kids and I decided that since he spends so much time at my house and his place is essentially a storage unit that he would be moving in. And before anyone has anything to say about it being too fast, please know I have known Jake my entire life. That's not exaggerating. I've literally known him my entire life. I am comfortable and confident in this choice. Tyler is still a ghost and still has made 0 contact attempts. The kids are beautiful, loved and thriving. Sorry for it being so short and sweet, but life has been kicking my ass between sleep regression, lawyer meetings, court, work, and my older 2 extracurricular activities.